How are you?
Beautiful words don't do what? Don't put porridge in a cup or something like that.
Something. Yeah, we did that, didn't we?
It's a proverb.
It's a proverb.
Beautiful words don't put porridge in a cup.
Yes, don't they just?
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, CT.
Good morning, Ndu.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Good to be seen.
Yes. So whose phone is that?
I've just switched it off. That's what I was doing.
Someone calling you.
That's a switch off tone, Baba.
That's a switch off tone.
Yeah.
Hey.
Done.
You know, depends on where your phone is made.
Good Lord, here we go. All right, let's dig at
and what it's called.
It's an let's.
If it is a name like Bird.
Hey, wait. Okay. You're in fine form this morning, gentlemen.
Okay.
Okay, there's a lot to discuss today
There is.
on the show. Of course, we have to discuss this issue of the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya speaking to the President of the Republic of Kenya and deciding that because I am not able to access you directly, Mr. President, Mr. President, I'm going to talk to you, Mr. President, through the public, Mr. President. And this is what he did. Hey.
All guns blazing, pulling no punches, saying it as it is.
I got nothing to lose. Basically, the message at the end of the day, what I heard from CJ Maraga is, I got nothing to lose. Nothing. Even he was like, Kutadu. So we'll discuss that in detail. We know there was a direct hit on between the two gentlemen. Also, it's important that we see ESCC is gaining ground in the fight against corruption. And the time when we hosted the ESCC CEO here, and he said, look, we keep making strides. They are short strides, they're incremental strides. We are moving in a certain direction.
We're moving forward.
And it keeps reminding me of what CT kept saying. Some of these things, we may not necessarily see them as movements now, but they're actually taking us somewhere. So we'll be interrogating that and what the ESCC has.
In fact, my full statement was, and people will get jailed.
And
Yes, you did.
So we're still waiting for that part.
Oh, they'll get jailed.
Or the people getting jailed. The governor of Kirinyaga is
Up on the chopping block today.
going to the tribal council today.
Yes, she is.
Yes. And it's going to be
Anne Waiguru.
That's Anne Waiguru.
Okay.
Impeachment. Leo.
Imminent.
What is it that the MCAs complained about?
A
A
couple
number
of
of
things. Remember, we discussed
things,
them here.
mismanagement
Yes, we
of
did.
office,
Yes, all the
mismanagement of funds.
The usual things in other
Yes,
words.
misappropriation of funds, mismanagement of office. That's this.
Claiming impress for something not used. Remember? And
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or the sort of thing that MCAs themselves do.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that sort of
But
thing.
because somebody's in a higher position of power,
Okay.
why not blame them?
Or they wanted something and she sort of like said that's
I remember
That's not gonna
she
happen,
responded
so
to them and
it's
told
okay.
them, if you don't even understand how the government works, my friends.
Whoa!
The patronizing manner in which she dealt with a number of us is not to be accepted. I
That
believe was
isn't
one of the quotes.
patronizing.
I believe that was one of the quotes from one of the MCAs.
Yeah, but that isn't patronizing. That is telling you that unpalatable truth. You know, government works in a certain way. Not the way you would wish it to work or the way you'd want it to work.
But just the way it works.
That's
yeah.
how it works.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important when you're talking about government, or if you want the government to work, let people who understand how government works work in government.
If you don't.
Or something will go very wrong. Like you bring someone straight from the NGO world and put them in government. There'll be a bit of a problem before that person fits in.
Just a bit.
The workings of those two organizations are a bit different. Yes.
But now in this particular case, she was talking about how she acquired the car. So I don't know, it came from the national government via what. And
No. I wasn't even going there.
They were asking. And then she responded by saying, if you don't even understand how the government works.
Essentially,
She insulted them without
I'm
insulting
not
them.
going to...
meaning she was in essence saying, you're dunderheads.
Yeah.
Yes, in case you didn't know, let me just brief you.
You guys don't understand. You know nothing.
You know that one? That is one good deed that will definitely go rewarded.
Yep.
Man, the MCAs will have you for breakfast.
True.
Disrespect or perceived disrespect.
Yep.
Oh no.
On that band alone, they will come together, and just for that, you will find that they would come together and say, this one, because of the fact that we felt insulted and disrespected, we'll band together on this
But
one.
you see, it's the same thing. What do you think CJ Maraga is pitching or kicking a fuss about? See, he also has a legacy issue here. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's on his way out.
Yep.
Okay, so he's decided, I'm going to leave with a bang. Perhaps not necessarily the wisest of tactics. No. More fly is actually caught with honey than with vinegar.
Maybe he's tried the honey so many times. He's realized this bee doesn't take this fly.
You never stop. You never really stop. There will be a way. Yes, there always is a way.
He's doing the same thing that the president maybe did. I'm trying to go a certain direction. Now, if you really do not want to go that same direction with me, so why don't we just agree to disagree? Tukubaliane mara moja. We are not playing the same game. Anyway, let's take a look at weather quickly and then come in and start reviewing some of these stories. These are hot stories this morning.
This one that you're clapping now.
It's hot. Situation room is Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning, 6:20.
All right, it seems that winter will soon begin in Kenya. Nairobi currently at 14 degrees. We will have mostly cloudy conditions and the chance of rain is quite high. Highs of 23 and lows of 13 today in the capital. All right, let's move on to Nyeri where it's cloudy conditions all through and rain will continue through today well into Wednesday. Highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 14 degrees. Thunderstorms predicted for later on with highs of 22. In Eldoret at 13 degrees. It's clear skies all through but thunderstorms likely to check in later. Highs of 20 and lows of 12. 20 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kisumu this morning. Rain expected in the afternoon. Highs of 27 and lows of 19. Kakamega at 16 degrees and the rain will continue in this area. Highs of 24 and lows of 16. Take a look into Mombasa where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees and likely to continue that way through the day. Highs of 29. We'll see highs of 29 in Malindi as well. It's currently partly cloudy at 26 degrees. Jump into East Africa where in Kampala it's mostly cloudy at 19 and a chance of rain there as well. Highs of 24 and lows of 18. It'll be showery in Dar es Salaam later on. Right now, 22 degrees and clear skies. And moving further south to Johannesburg where it's still really chilly at 7 degrees and the South African winter has really stepped up. Highs of 18 and lows of 4 with clear skies all through. In Lagos, it's light thunderstorms already being experienced at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24 with the rain continuing through the day and into the night. Let's look into Paris, where at 12 degrees it's cloudy conditions. It'll open up with partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 19 and lows of 10. Into London, where at 10 degrees it's partly cloudy, highs of 19 and lows of 10. And finally, when the sun does come up in New York, it'll be clear and sunny conditions all through with highs of 26 and lows of 18.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
Of COVID-19, what happened to my mic? It just goes off by itself. So, where are we in the country?
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's the first time the number of more, or rather those who are discharged
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
In terms of what we saw, 97 is the number of people discharged from hospital after fully recovering from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. For the first time, the number of people leaving hospital in a day after making a full recovery was more than those of the new cases reported yesterday, giving Kenya something to celebrate. So that is definitely a good thing. Kenya's cases now stand at 2,872. Total number of recovered cases that we see now, or rather now against the deaths that we see of 85, total recovered 849 cases. So this is a good thing. And if you want to look at the global numbers, we now have that at 7,189 recovered cases at 7,198,634. The recovered cases are exactly bang on half now that we see 3.5 million cases having recovered. So the other cases have then either resulted in death or they're active cases now. And that's the first time we've seen that kind of balance globally.
50-50.
I'm wondering, when they say
Portfolio
recovered and when they
balance.
say fully recovered, what do they mean exactly?
I
Fully
think
recovered and recovered.
Yes.
no, there's no difference. It's the same thing.
Oh, so if you've recovered, then you've fully recovered.
Yes, you're alive.
And if you fully recovered,
You've recovered.
You've recovered.
Fully.
Voila.
Fu-
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we're looking at around the world. The numbers in Mexico still continue to rise. And now another country that seems to have popped up on our radar now is Pakistan. In the last 6 hours, Pakistan has recognized 4,646 cases in the last 6 hours with 105 deaths. Mexico still continues to ramp up the numbers with 2,999 cases since about midnight with 354 deaths. So Pakistan has popped up. We did not see these numbers, as of 10 days ago, but we see this now. It didn't even show up yesterday, with the total number of cases in Pakistan at 108,317 against a population of 220 million. India, we saw the other day. So with about 5-6 times the number of Pakistan's population, has only double the number of cases. So Pakistan is a country to watch now in terms of what may be happening. It would be interesting to see if they've ramped up their testing. However, the deaths vis-a-vis the number of cases that they found in the last few hours also is a bit worrying, just like Mexico.
So that's in Pakistan are rising.
Yes, for some reason, this did not show up. This did not show up even yesterday.
Are they
the day
testing
before.
more?
This is the thing we have to find out, if they're testing more. But then, if you look at the overall, is that you do have deaths together with the cases,
positive cases.
the positive cases. Because if you want to look at that, like South Africa, for example, South Africa is now way beyond 40,000 cases, but the deaths have not increased. So now you have countries like Mexico and now Pakistan that has joined this group, where you have an increased number of cases, whether they're testing or not. Obviously, they're testing, so that's how they know. But then you also have the deaths that are increasing. So, I mean, that's the worrying factor.
The thing that I find a bit puzzling here when people say they're testing, you see, there's screening.
The one for temperature.
And a little bit, yes, temperature and maybe a few other indicators. And then there's testing. And when you say test kit, again, there are very many differences in the sort of test kits that you have. And then there's a problem also with the test kits, because you will find there are very many cases where you have what you call false positives.
Yeah.
And with false positives, you then have an opportunity to have a different test that acts as a tiebreaker. Okay? Or you have one which we call a confirmatory test, meaning we've had this test, we're not sure. Second one, confirmatory. Then just to make sure, a third one, confirmatory. This is information I am not very clear about, whether we have all these cases, because there are cases of false positives.
I mean, we'll give an example of a lady, a Kenyan lady who died a couple of days ago, and this was the case, that she was in hospital with COVID-like symptoms. She was tested and found to be negative. She was released from hospital and then developed, complications, and then died, unfortunately. And now when posthumous testing was done on her, it was found that she was positive for COVID. In hospital, the test was found to be negative. Posthumously, positive. But unfortunately, she had passed. So that's a big issue that I think is being dealt with or being seen or recognized in many, many cases, in many, many countries around the world. So that it's an issue.
Remember when this matter first sprang up in the US, and it became a clear problem. The real problem that arose, again, from the process of testing was just faulty test kits. There are many, many batches of test kits that had to be withdrawn because they were simply not doing what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
So again, not my intention to add a problem onto a problem, but if we are going to be certain about these things, these are things that we must be clear about.
Yes, we do. We need to do that. So let's come out of this break. Take a look at traffic first. And then now we start taking a look at what's covered in the papers on issues of COVID, the government's response on COVID, the plans going ahead, and everything else that's happening. Remember, tomorrow is budget day. And Ukuri Atani is going to be telling us what he wants to do with 2.7 trillion shillings. And most importantly, how he wants to raise 2.7 trillion shillings.
Yeah, where he's going to get it from.
For the next year.
Yeah.
Not tomorrow. Today is Tuesday.
It's on Thursday. It's on Thursday.
Thursday is the day.
Yeah.
6:30. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. The live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. You can join the conversation on Instagram, Spice FM KE, and our phone line is 0719012600. Good morning.
The current state on the roads is any indication of what the day will be, then I think you can smile because traffic is not posing any problems at the moment. Looking at the major roads where we normally have issues, specifically in Nairobi, on Mombasa Road and Thika Road, things seem to be moving along quite smoothly at the moment. Hopefully that doesn't change much as the day progresses, but for now you will not have any issues per se. We know that there will be some points where it might hold up a bit, but the hope is that it will not be crazy. All right, looking at other parts of the country in the meantime, however, Mombasa is looking good as well. Kisumu is looking all right, and Eldoret, which never seems to have any traffic, is also looking pretty good. Getting out of Nakuru, interestingly, this morning, out of the main town, a little bit of a hold-up right in the middle of town, but you should be fine thereafter. All right, we'll take a look at where it might get you stuck later, but for now, it looks good. Remember, you can reach us on Spice FM KE, and that's on Twitter. Twitter. Let's have a look at what it looks like from your neck of the woods, and we'll spread the word.
All right, it is 26 to 7. This is a situation in this conversation. Let's get straight into the headlines, shall we? What do you have interesting to do?
All right. Faces that speeded up divorce. I don't know if I like that word.
What? Divorce?
No, speeded.
Sped.
What
I
did you
prefer
like to say?
sped.
Sped up.
Sped up. Speeded up, I don't think is English. But okay. Faces that sped up divorce is what I'll choose to use. Free fall. The Jubilee marriage was already on the rocks, but the tongues, acts, and omissions of these men and women tipped the scales for the Huruto dream. And it's looking at individuals here that would have made it easier then for this relationship to now tumble down the stairs. And so basically what it's telling us is that, you know what? We know that it was already on the rocks, but there's some elements or factors, right, that just made it easier for this split to occur. Looking onto page 6 is when we say, you know, these are the guys, you know how you have a marriage and you allow other individuals into the marriage? Well, the men and women who sank the dynamic duo's bromance. A band of less than 10 men and women are the stars of the messy and noisy divorce between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, William Ruto. Through their tongues, acts, and omissions, they catalyzed a sinking political marriage between the pair that was once dubbed a dynamic duo. Granted, the union, described by analysts as a marriage of convenience, was founded on rocks of strong suspicions and mistrust. The flashes of it flickered at the International Criminal Court case when Ruto's team blamed Kenyatta men of fixing him at the court. So from Murathe to Murkomen and Gunjiri to Wambogo to Kimani Gunjiri, these are the people that catalyzed the fallout. So, giving indication that perhaps it would not have happened so quickly
Some people
if these
getting
men and
undue
women
credit.
did not add to the fire.
Are some people there getting undue credit?
Such as
Kimani Gunjiri.
undue credit for aiding in the...
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's look at this. From the president's side, the words, act, and omissions of ODM leader Raila Odinga, Jubilee Vice Chairman David Murathe, Kenya's private political advisor Nancy Gitau, Jubilee Secretary General Raphael Tuju, and KOTU boss Francis Atwoli carry the torch at the foremost catalysts.
Okay.
At a different level, the supporting cast of bureaucrats like Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibicho and parliamentarians Maina Kamanda gave meaning to the intentions. On the DP side, the stars of the Ruto Brigade were led by ousted Senate leader Kipchumba Murkomen, Deputy Speaker of the Senate, or rather former now, Kindiki Kithure, axed Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri, former Senate Majority Whip Susan Kihika, and besieged leader of the majority of the National Assembly, Aden Duale.
Okay.
So
I think this is one of those stories where it's just giving some context, but nothing new. I mean, there's no new news in the story, right? It's just contextualizing what we've been seeing.
Telling you what you know.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, page 2 of the Standard. MPs question allocation of 8 billion shillings to completed projects. This matter had been in the paper a couple of weeks back, right? The Parliamentary Budget Office is questioning the 64 ready projects which continue to receive billions of shillings in allocation.
The argument that has
been proffered by the National Treasury is, or
the infrastructure PS Minister Paul Mariga, he says they needs to understand there's a nuance here. The project may come to an end, but it doesn't mean that it's still the financial obligations have been completed.
Yep.
Yes, it makes sense to me.
The National Treasury CS, when he spoke to us, he said the same thing.
Yes.
And he actually was saying there are projects, remember there are those roads, saying as a particular project, yes, it's supposed to be completed within this time, but the payment is supposed to be completed within a certain duration of time.
It is actually not an unusual process that he's referring to. In fact, there's a certain amount of money, if you're talking about infrastructure projects, that is never really paid until and after a certain period has lapsed.
Yeah.
Yes. So, see, the problem again is this. When you have a situation in a country where money has gone in all manner of direction other than the direction it should have gone in the first place, the moment such a matter arises, suspicion is the first response. It's the knee-jerk response. Why are we paying for things that have been completed?
Yeah, have been completed. But also, I think it also raises an issue here. The government, the committee on in Parliament, the National Assembly's Budget and Appropriations Committee, says the government should have a clear manner to report pending financial obligations and differentiate it from funds used for project sustainability, particularly for roads and other major infrastructure projects.
Yes.
So basically here what they're saying is, in the system, it's still showing that this is still pending. So the physical part of the project could be completed, but the financial obligation is not completed. And this is where now I think the issues arise, because on the ground, there was even ribbon cutting. And then in the system, it's still showing this is still an ongoing project. So you should have a clear differentiation in terms of reporting in the system, show that the project is actually completed, but the financial obligation is still ongoing.
The system should indicate that.
The system should indicate that, so that the Parliamentary Budget Office, when it looks like that, it just says, all right, so this one was completed, and we still have 5 more years of paying and allocating money for it. This is, I think it's a matter that just requires better understanding of from all quarters. There's a sad story here. Shock after a man kills daughter and injures wife over failed sleeping plan. Residents of Nyakwerema in North Mugirango, Nyamira County are reeling in shock after a man hacked his 4-year-old daughter to death over a failed sleeping arrangement. The man is said to have been angered when his plan to share a bed with the daughter was denied by the wife. The girl who was killed is a twin sister to a boy who was not present on the fateful Sunday night. The couple have 4 children. The twins are the lastborns. The mother, who also suffered head injuries during the scuffle, said that 3 children had refused to accompany her back from her maternal home after she agreed to return to their father in Boisanga village 2 weeks ago. The other children have been living in fear of their father because he would turn so abusive. They refused to come home with me to him. It's one of those.
If it was a rare occurrence, you would posit isn't. This sort of violence is reported very, very often. There's one where a man was lynched for killing a neighbor over chicken. There had been, and this one now is in Marimanti, Tharaka Nithi County. There had been some border disputes. Then one evening, this guy's chicken moved, sort of like the way chicken do, they go to the neighbors. So the border disputes now spills over. This 38-year-old man decides the best way to sort this thing out is to slit his neighbor's throat. A 70-year-old neighbor.
As opposed to that of the chicken.
So
Yes.
38-year-old man killed a 70-year-old
Yes,
man over
and
chicken.
yes, and the citizens of that particular village decide it's all right. So they just lynched the man.
So the 38-year-old now is lynched by the village.
Yes.
The villagers.
There's a certain amount of pressure which, if not managed or handled, spills over in unwarranted violence. Things that could easily, chicken, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Surely,
Chicken are strayed, and that's normal. I mean, that
chicken
happens a
stray
lot.
all the time. Goats stray.
Although sometimes, actually, if you look at how neighbors relate, those issues are the ones that cause a lot of conflict. Chicken stray. You tell your neighbor, look, your chicken is straying. And the neighbor is like, "Akinitangalia," and you realize that this person is doing nothing at all to address this issue. Keep the chicken in the coop, or put a chicken mesh. Do anything. Show that you're doing something to address the issue. But if you actually all the day you just open the chicken coop and let the chicken wander, and you know that they'll come to my farm and they're coming to eat my sukuma wiki, look, tensions escalate. And this is the issues that neighbors deal with on a regular basis. Chicken strayed, cattle strayed, goats. There's a tree that's hanging and it's dropping its leaves onto my side. Or there's a tree that's hanging and it's dropping fruits onto your side, and I want those fruits to come back. A mango tree and the mangoes are dropping on your side.
Yeah, I think people would think we all have a bit of an issue then reconciling how then, you know, one action like that then would lead to me taking a decision to take another one's life, right?
Yep.
So obviously we see that this is a compilation of this frustration over time for whatever reason, because the act of killing is, because if you look at what a lot of psychologists will tell you, or even those who deal with psychoanalysis will tell you, that the act of killing, taking another life, is actually something that requires quite a lot of resolve, number
By the
one.
time it tips over to
By
that
the time
point.
it gets to that point, a lot has
a lot of
occurred in
bomb-
the mind,
yeah.
right? So it's not just something that you can wake up and decide I'm going to do today. It is something that by the time
Builds
the action
up
is being
over-
taken, it
over
has
time.
built up over a long, long period of time.
You know, you've
And
read
even
of-
those who have come now and then taken that action on the one who did the first time, for them, it's also pent up. It's pent up frustration, it's pent up tension, and they take it out, you know?
You know, you've heard of these clashes in the Tana River Delta. Now, if you ever go to that place, it's then not difficult to understand. Because the Pokomo, they are farmers. Their neighbors, you have the Oromo, you have the Wardei, okay? They don't really farm, but they keep cattle.
Cattle.
Now, many of these farms tend to move towards the river because that's when you have easy access to water, okay? This is where the problem arises. When people then move their cattle to the river, sometimes they are not careful enough to ensure that they avoid the maize plantations. And cows really like maize. Maize is actually sweet.
Yeah.
No, literally. They're sweet. So, and by the way, when you're talking about cows, I'm not talking about 10 cows. I'm not talking about 100 cows. I'm talking about more than 100. If they move as a herd, man, your entire plantation gone.
Kwisha.
A fight will break out.
Yeah.
Now, the issue isn't the maize. Like the issue isn't the chicken. It's someone feels this person disrespects me.
Yeah. It's you feel this is complete impunity.
Yes.
You did it on purpose.
You know very well I plant my maize here. Why you bring the other place
did
we
it
don't
on
plant maize? Why
purpose.
didn't you take your cattle there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can even see that your cattle are straying into my farm.
Yes.
And you're doing absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
You actually sat, in some cases, you've seen those neighbors, you actually see somebody sitting there observing and pretending that they can't see their cow eating your farm. Hey, my friend.
Yes. And that is someone's food
Yeah.
for a certain duration of time.
It's
I think that's the thing.
It's
I think
madarao.
that right there is the issue, because you're touching on somebody's livelihood for which they don't have an option of where to get it if that is destroyed, right? How they're going to be able to feed their family, how they're going to be able to feed their children, etc., etc. And your livelihood is feeding on mine. Your cows are fat, and you will have an option in terms of what to do if they now encroach onto my property. And I have nothing. So I think it is that feeling, it is that frustration that leads to something like this. Look, it's not justifiable, but it's a reason as
It
to
is.
why this is happening.
It is. But also it points to the issue of dispute resolution in our communities. Because communities need to work out on ways of ensuring there's proper dispute resolution mechanism. Those alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, when the chiefs came and the only way all of you know is you go and report to the chief, and then the chief, or you go to the police, and then the police will release the suspect, people feel like we don't have
And
any
it's
way
over
of dealing
a
with this issue.
resource. Look at any conflict. That which even escalated from conflict then to battle to war. The primary reason was over resources.
Yep.
Wherever you want to look at it in the world. Primary reason, resources.
You know the issue of our mode and methods of conflict resolution is also fundamental here. Remember, for the longest time, when you had domestic issues, it never went to the police. It
No,
went to the chief.
exactly.
And sometimes it didn't even need to go to the chief, it would go to the headman.
It's elders.
Yes. And it was resolved. And why it was accepted as a conflict resolution solution was because the solutions that had been proffered by those groups were considered acceptable
Yeah.
over time. Now, when they started becoming unacceptable, modern technology of bribery came into being.
Yeah.
Okay? So justice could be steered in the direction where the money went. Okay, so people would go to the police. They found you're even better off dealing with the previous conflict resolution method.
You take this person to the police, and tomorrow you'll see him. In fact, by that evening, you'll see him back home.
That is, if you are not arrested.
Yes.
The tables will
could
turn.
even get worse.
Oh, it can get worse.
You're the one now who is the perpetrator.
Oh, yes, it can get worse. So, again, when you find that social issues or issues, and it's men, how often do you read of situations where women have perpetrated this violence? If they have, it's against the man.
Yeah.
So, what is it? What is it that's happening in our society? Remember, we've discussed this before. What is it that's happening in our society where people are building up this amount of pressure to the point where someone hacks their own child?
Yeah.
You know what? I think also if you want to look at it, again, with studies that have been done, or just you want to look at the patterns in which life has taken, is that once you remove, and it could be whatever forces come into play, the economic outlook or economic pressures of the entire country, essentially what happens is that somebody's ability to provide an adequate livelihood for his family or for himself is removed. That essentially emasculates him. And you deal with the emasculation of a man, that's like killing him.
Because that feeling of helplessness.
Yeah, it's not something that a man wants to deal with.
No. They actually don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
And then there isn't a mechanism for actually resolving this feeling of helplessness that the person has, because it often means you have to go and talk about it.
And then you portray what would be perceived as uselessness.
African men don't go around
No.
talking about
Exposing
their
you.
problems.
No.
They do
You
not.
can't expose yourself.
They do not.
So
So,
it would explain it.
you know, even as we're speaking, I'm looking at the Floyd issue. Ask yourself, how did it get to a point where this one just didn't boil over, it exploded over.
Just exploded.
Yes. And it's all over the world.
It is.
The world. So what does it tell you? Is it this thing had been boiling? This issue had been, for people to pick it up, it's not as though someone told them, guys, it's about time to pick it up.
Snap your
It was
fingers, let's go.
spontaneous and just kept going.
Yeah.
It meant that this is something that a lot of people have had strong feelings towards. And
Needed an outlet.
Oh, yes, it did. And COVID helped.
Brought it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
People were cooped up. They didn't have avenues of venting.
So this was it.
This one comes along. Amen.
Let's go.
No.
You clutch on it. You just jump on it.
Actually, you think about it. We thought that COVID was something remarkable and something to sort of like a game-changing event. This one has caught the attention of the world, and it has been assumed that it will come to an end. It isn't. The numbers of people protesting is growing, not diminishing.
Yes.
And then the things that are coming as suggestion are things that you would never even dream about. For example, whereby the state of Minneapolis is thinking, now the council is thinking about defunding the police force.
It isn't thinking.
In the United States.
It isn't thinking.
Would you ever have thought that
isn't thinking,
it's
my
going to
dear.
do it? Would you ever have thought that such a thing would happen?
The council, the majority have decided they are
They're
going
to defund the police force
My goodness.
and put it in the hands of the council. Did you ever think that such a thing would happen?
My goodness. 8 minutes to 7. This is the situation amidst Kenya's biggest conversation.
You are tuned in to Nairobi's number 1 soul station, Spice FM.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything
8 to 7. What's on the newspaper headlines?
Well, there are a number of things. Quite a number of things.
Spice up your life.
Front and center. On whose side are you? CJ Maraga asks Uhuru. The Chief Justice accuses President Kenyatta of disobeying court orders and going against the Constitution by failing to appoint 41 judges. And the quote there, it will be a dereliction of my duty if I do not raise Wanjiko's agonies in my domain. At least let her know that I share in her frustrations. And he came out, guns blazing yesterday. And said, look, we have problems. And these problems that we have are as a direct result of the president choosing not to act on certain issues. There's been a collapse in the process.
We'll look at that in detail in the next hour, for
Yeah.
the full hour of 7 to 8. We'll look at that. We'll speak to the Law Society of Kenya President, Nelson Harvey. We'll also speak to somebody who's actually worked on the judiciary, the first judiciary and the new constitution. And that is our PC Brian Obara. He'll be telling us, giving us some insights on what they, some kind of research that they did and what they came up with. So we get into that, and it's going to be interesting. Keep it right here. What else do you have? What else is there? Wetangula has less than a week to save himself as a leader of Ford Kenya. And this is after the Registrar of Political Parties gazetted the intention of his removal from the annex of the party, a move that, if unopposed, will hand over the leadership to Wetangula's political nemesis. Under Rito, the Registrar of Political Parties reviewed the submissions presented by Secretary General Eseli Simiu's faction against the relevant laws, including the Political Parties Act, the Ford Kenya Constitution, and records of the party in their possession. She gave notice of Wetangula's replacement with Kandui MP Wafula Wamunyinyi, the mastermind of the plot to overthrow the senator as party leader. So now, our good friend Mr. Weta has less than a week to file any objection with the Register of Political Parties. Failure to which, done and dusted. Ford Kenya party leader Wafula Wamunyinyi.
You know, even if, let us say, that he did manage to overturn, the very thing that we see happening in Jubilee will have happened in Ford Kenya.
Which is?
Ford Kenya will have split.
There'll be a new Ford Kenya.
No, the party itself will just have split. Because, I mean, you know, you can have wrangles within the party, but the party is still united.
Yeah.
But this one, the fight is in the open. There are clearly two camps.
Yep.
So either which way, there will be two camps.
There'll be two camps.
Yes.
Whether those two camps will remain within, trying to fight within the party, or they
can choose to go elsewhere. The truth is they can remain within the party. Okay. But we'll have two distinct camps within Ford Kenya.
Yep.
So if you're talking about unity of the party,
It's
that
gone.
one out of the window.
Is gone.
Completely out of the window.
And fate of Duales and the other senators also.
Well, according to page 6
Eh.
of the Standard, the fate, they say, is squarely in Uhuru's hands.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it is indeed a Woye moment. And it is a Woye moment. You know, one of the things that you sometimes realize about our politicians, by and large, and this is talk about politicians generally, is that they speak before they think. Many of them have uttered unutterable things, and they have not lacked things to say, even when wisdom would have dictated that they perhaps choose a former, a wiser form of operation, which is by keeping quiet. They have spoken. And unfortunately, those words will come back to haunt them now.
Bigly.
Yes, like some of the things that Alice Wahome said.
When?
Oh, Alice Wahome said many things on many occasions.
And in the period before COVID.
Yes, and she directed them straight, if I may use, straightly at the president.
Now that we're using adverbs, all right.
And she didn't mince her words.
So you're seeing that coming. Now they've been removed from... Okay, Alice Wahome, by the way, is fighting her removal. Not fighting really, but pushing back on her removal from leadership of a committee in Parliament. So she says she's received the letter from the whip, the new majority whip, telling her that she has been removed. And she says, all right, but I need you to tell me exactly the grounds on which you're removing me.
On what grounds was she appointed? What are the grounds of appointment?
She says, tell me why you're removing me.
I think this is the thing.
You see, the thing is, she's been told, failure, if you... This is a notice to show cause, all right? The letter was notice to show cause.
And
if
she's
you
showing
don't,
cause.
if you don't show cause, we are removing you. So she's saying, for me to show cause, tell me exactly what you have against
Eric,
me.
and I'm asking the question, what is the criteria for her appointment?
Those are details. She's even her, she knows. She's not going to get a response. What she's just trying to do is...
By time.
Yeah. Put a wedge on the door before you leave.
Again, is it really wise? You know, if you can't see the direction in which the wind is blowing, then you have yourself to blame, when the roof of your house is actually blown and taken to a distant place that you cannot actually follow it.
Don't blame anyone. Don't
Wind,
blame the wind.
The direction of this particular wind is clear. And if it isn't clear to you, then many other things will not be clear to you.
Uko na shida.
Uko na shida.
Kubwa. We are coming to the top of the hour. In the next hour, we talk about Chief Justice David Maraga's statement yesterday, addressing the National Executive and directly addressing the President. So before we do that, C.T. Muga, the proverb.
Yes, this one comes from the Ovambo. Ovambo, you find them in Namibia.
Oh.
In case you didn't know. Right. If you do not have patience, you cannot make beer.
If you do not have patience, you cannot
The
make...
process of brewing beer requires time. For you to take that grain, take it through a certain process, and come up with beer at the end of it, it requires time.
So if you cannot have patience...
You cannot make beer. You may make something else, but definitely not beer.
Not beer.
Not beer.
Forget it.
Forget it.
All right. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
On Mombasa Road, right around Cabanas, leading towards General Motors. It shouldn't take too long to get out of that, though. Right until the roadblock, things look very good. It doesn't pose any major problems this morning. Taking a look then on Thika Road, coming away from Safari Park Hotel and then moving then towards the Utali Drift is moving slowly this morning, but it's moving all the same. We shouldn't have much of an issue. Right around the Pangani Underpass, a bit of a hold up, then getting on to either the area towards Muranga Road or Forest Road. Should be fine this morning. So traffic is not causing too much of a headache right now. Hopefully we'll be able to look into that a little bit later and see if that has changed. But for now, you should get in and out of the CBD without any issue, wherever else you're going this morning. We'll take a look in a little bit. Spice of MKE. Don't forget you can reach us there in case you see anything we should know about.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I want to address the President personally. Your Excellency, you know I have respect for you as our President, and I have told you that. You also know that I have, for a long time now, unsuccessfully sought an appointment to discuss this issue with you, leaving me with no option but to raise the matter through this public statement. It will be at the direction of my duty if I do not raise Wanjiku's agonies in my domain. At least let her know that I share in her frustrations. It is for this reason that I must remind you, Your Excellency, that you swore to defend and uphold the Constitution and the laws of Kenya. The Constitution, as the two multi-judge court cases held, requires you to appoint judges recommended to you by the JSC, which you have refused to do. The laws of this country include valid court orders. It therefore behoves you to appoint the 41 judges recommended for appointment by the JSC as ordered by the court.
My friends. Chief Justice David Maraga walked out of his office yesterday. He was wearing gloves. He put the gloves on the side and decided, all right.
Gloves off.
Gloves are off. And this is an issue that we're going to have to deal with face to face with you, Mr. President. He's addressing the president directly. Now, to help us discuss this matter is a man who is a commentator on all matters, from politics to legal to everything. And he's also our programs controller, Brian Obara. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Kumbe, you're there. I forgot to actually activate your mic. So
Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be in the Situation Room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan, as you all know.
huge fan. Yes.
Thank you for
indeed.
not laughing, City. At least you take me seriously.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
No,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you.
something welcoming.
Thank you.
Look,
Yeah.
the reason why you're here, Brian, is also because you participated in authoring reports, and also you've covered as a journalist and as a legal person. You have dealt with the matters of the judiciary in this country for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
And especially with the first judiciary
Mm-hmm.
of the former Chief Justice, and the first judiciary that had a Supreme Court of Kenya, and the first judiciary that's dealing with this kind of matters and the Constitution, but also the first judiciary that was under President Uhuru Kenyatta, right? And now we are seeing the Chief Justice, David Maraga. This is not the first time that he's come out to raise these issues.
Yeah.
The last time he actually also did the same thing. He said, I want to discuss this with the president. Next, they met at a judges' conference, and he still raised the same issues. And the president stood up to sort of like talk casually and say, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm available. If anybody wishes to talk to me, really,
Yeah.
you can reach me. The Chief Justice yesterday is still saying, I have tried several times to reach you, Mr. President. I am unable to reach you. Whom should we believe?
Okay. You see, this is. I think, to be honest, if you were to put a flattering gaze on this, you would say that Uhuru has forgotten his oath of office, and over several times the CJ has sought it fit to remind him. But if you were to look at it unflatteringly, which I am more keen to do in this moment, because I think it's a question of great constitutional importance. I think we are in the grips of a slow motion coup, and the CJ yesterday did a great service to Kenyans by telling them, I'm in a very undignified position here because the president has refused even to see me, for me to explain to him in person and to his office why this thing is important. And I need to tell you, Kenyans, that the judiciary that should be serving you much better than it is right now is not. And for these reasons, I feel, this matter is of urgent importance in terms of its address. So whether it's a question of appointing the 41 judges or disregard of court orders, we are in the midst of something that I think is unprecedented. And Uhuru and his office, the AG and the Solicitor General, definitely know better. So the question is, why are they not doing better? Yesterday, I was listening to the LSK chair, Harvey, and I think he made a very bold attempt to try and side with the CJ, but I think he also couched his words very carefully. There's some people who say, he was very bold, and, some people even think he crossed the line, but the most important thing...
It wasn't enough for you.
It wasn't enough, because, when you have... Listen, I think... The thing that people like myself, who, thank you for calling me a commentator, because I observe these things so carefully. Things that has worried people like myself is that Uhuru is, for all intents and purposes, behaving like a monarch. And yesterday, Harvey was asked about this, and he said, no, he is not. But I am of the school of thought that when it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, then, you don't call it anything else than a duck.
Defeat.
Exactly. So I think here what... and. I even fault so many in the media, not just, in the legal fraternity. I think people have been blind, willfully, to what the president has been up to. And whether it's a misguided attempt at banishing his legacy or he's just arrogantly pursuing some sort of agenda here, we have to call this for what it is and to bring things back to where they should be. Because let me just say, civic education, he has some civic education. Why is the judiciary important? We say these are co-equal branches of the government.
Yes.
We have the executive, we have the legislature, and we have the judiciary.
Yep.
But when your CJ has to go hat in hand to the president, and the president won't see him, we really are in the midst of something that is very dangerous for our constitutional republic. If we recall back in 2010, what happened when there was so much hope in the country is because we had agreed on
A new way of
a new way of doing
ourselves
things.
and doing things.
Yeah. But these years now gone by, there have been so many examples of how we
Are
have.
all the failures, though, on the office of the president? Well, in this particular case,
Enough
are we
of
dealing,
them
are
are-
we dealing with the president as head of executive or head of state? And I think we need to distinguish that as well. We're talking about the head of state. When the chief justice wants to meet with the head of state so that they can discuss, or even let's say they want to meet with head of the executive so that they can discuss issues of conflict. In this particular case, appointment of 41 judges is head of state who's supposed to appoint the 41 judges in his capacity as head of state.
Oh, and thank you for putting that very clearly, because I think you guys have seen the front page of the Star today, and there's this misguided notion, and this is where we go back to again the monarch. What does the front page of the Star
does it
say
say?
today? What does it say? It says Uhuru was going to appoint the judges next week. Was going to pick the judges. That's the word it chooses. I don't know whether it's editorial or just people who were briefed wrongly by who at this moment. I'm not going to cast aspersions, but I think it's a very dangerous place
So
where we are.
I was taking you back to the question that I asked.
No, I'm saying
Is
okay,
is
to
all
be
the
sure
blame
what the
sitting
CJ
in State
said
House,
yesterday.
or is some blame also going to the Supreme Court of Kenya?
Well, let's
The-
pick
No.
it apart.
the
If we can
office
pick
of-
it apart and look at some of the things that he precedented this announcement yesterday. One of the first things that he said is that, Your Excellency, I have tried to reach you, but I have not been able. So let's start from that and ask ourselves, and I'm going to put this out there. Is it that he sought audience with the president and he said, I'm busy, I'm in a meeting, I'm not able to see you now? Over time, he has tried to see the president over the last couple of months, 6 months, 1 year. He has sought audience and has been denied that audience? Or
Hasn't received a
has
response.
not been given a response, or the issues have just been ignored? It could be one of the three. So what are we looking at here?
We're looking at contempt for the Chief Justice. I think we shouldn't listen. Some people are trying to put a gloss on this, but what the President's office and the AG and the Solicitor General have shown the CJ is utter contempt. Did you see the CJ's appearance yesterday? This was a man who was not just besieged but angry.
Not the first
As
time.
much as he could show it anyway.
We're sort of getting used to seeing CJ Maraga looking this way and coming out and complaining.
Yeah.
And even the last time we discussed it here, last year, and he was talking about the reason why the fight against corruption, the pursuit for justice in the country is getting hit left, right, and center. He was pointing a finger straight at the executive again.
Yeah.
And the question that even CT was asking here, so let's look at what you've been able to do so far. Okay, so yeah, we can blame
With what you have, what have you
executive.
done?
What have you done?
Yeah.
What is it that you've done as Chief Justice to advance the cause of justice in the country? You as a person, because we are talking about Uhuru as a person, not the office of the president. We are talking he is talking about Uhuru as a person. Let's also look at him, David Maraga, as a person. City, you raised this issue.
I've raised it on more than one occasion. And I've said, here is the office of the CG talking about them being unfunded or funded inadequately. I said, okay, but at least you've got some funds. Tell us what you've done with these funds.
Yeah.
Let's start there. Okay.
Yeah.
Just tell us what we've been given, this is what we've done, these are the things we've innovated. That there's a little silence when that is asked, isn't it? I've never heard anything coming out very clearly, but I'm going to take this discussion even further. It seems to point at the President Uhuru, as though he invented impunity. Is he the first president of this country to ignore court orders? Is he the first president of this country to completely ignore the constitution?
No.
Yeah.
He is not. I'm not saying that.
It makes it right. But
No. It doesn't make it right at all. I'm saying if you want to discuss the president, then let's contextualize it.
Yeah, and City, you bring up a very important point, because I think, okay, of course, he's not the first president, unfortunately, to ignore court orders. I think we saw that several times in Kibaki's last term, even after the constitution was enacted. And what we have, I think, for me, the example that I always reach out for was the rulings that enabled Ruto and Uhuru even to be on the ballot in 2013. Because I think...
You've taken it that far back.
Yeah, I think we need to start there, because you see, when... Okay, my stance on this is what we are witnessing here is the persistent and wholesale hollowing out of our 2010 constitution, which I think is... as the CJ reminded Uhuru yesterday, is something that he swore an oath to obey the laws of the country, to be at least, to set an example. You have to model certain behavior if you want it to be present in your administration and in the citizenry in general. Uhuru has failed to do that, but I think even the judiciary itself sits on precious little high moral ground on this matter. Because what they did in 2013 was they vaulted Uhuru and Ruto above the standards that were in the constitution. And I'm referring here specifically to, chapter 6. Yes, because to be honest, there is no single interpretation of chapter 6 that would allow suspects of the charges that they were facing at the International Criminal Court.
You are not a judge.
Wait, I'm not a judge, but I'm saying,
judges who have the mandate to interpret that clause of the Constitution found them fit to serve.
And
contest.
they failed miserably at their jobs at doing that, because
Eric, you have a point, but let's look at the larger picture here. We take these matters to judges because they have studied the law and we have entrusted them with the duty of interpreting it for us. It doesn't mean we can't prefer an opinion, surely.
True.
Yes.
I would think so.
Yes.
I would hope so.
True.
Yes.
We can prefer, but when they've made theirs, we defer to theirs.
We refer to theirs, but we can also disagree with theirs. Because, you see, the thing about the Constitution and it being... No, in fact, let me forget the Constitution for a while. Let me go back to a book that is considered a revered book called the Bible. Okay? One of the biggest issues... Yes. One of the biggest issues that people had with the Bible X centuries ago was that only a small group of people declared themselves able and capable of interpreting it for everybody.
What it said, right?
Yeah. So when some people came and said, no, let's print this thing and give it to everyone, there is nothing they were not accused of. The death sentence was preferred on their heads on many occasions. Then you can actually... You know why? Simply because they said, if it is, as you say, the word of God, then why shouldn't other people who are also capable of read it and interpret it?
For themselves.
Exactly. So it's in the same way. If you have a constitution and we can read the constitution, well...
We can read it and interpret it for us.
We can. And we can even disagree with the rulings that our learned friends have...
Fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough. But on record, the judiciary has actually addressed itself on that matter, and that's how come they were allowed to vie. So yes, we can keep going back there and saying, they erred from that point, and from that point on, the judiciary has been sitting with, tainted image because of this one action. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we cannot say that the judiciary is incompetent. That is not the one action that we can use. Same way we cannot say that because of the ICC case, it means that Uhuru Kenyatta is therefore not even suitable to be considered president or leader.
Actually, you can. You see, if for purposes of simple discussion and argument, academically speaking, if you were to look at the law in purity, my friend, the interpretation is not very difficult to figure out.
It's not. And you see, when we're talking about 2010, and I really wish, we could go back to that moment in which, we had these high aspirations for ourselves as a country. You see, when you're talking about the Constitution, it's no more than a social contract between ourselves and our government to say how we shall operate. But then merely 3 years later, then you have one of the biggest tests in terms of how the country can tackle impunity.
Yeah.
And you get a court that basically raises his hands and says, we can't, decide on this, or these guys have to be on the ballot because people like them so much. That was, for me, the implication of what they were saying. Because if you were to nakedly interpret Chapter 6, they can't be on the ballot. So can't Waititu and so many others who, we have now come to consider mistakes that were made. And you see, if...
Would you say then perhaps that our judiciary has been in the process of maturing and coming to terms with the reality of the mandate that they have been given?
Yeah, and this is where I both laud and fault Maraga, because he needs to come clean on how his court has been entangled in this mess that it finds itself. Because if we're talking about impunity then and disregard of court orders, Miguna would be in Kenya right now and not in Canada. And there are many examples of this. The judiciary isn't necessarily to go back to City's point about what have they done. The judiciary isn't faultless. We're talking about, for example, the Akasha brothers. Pantomime trials here in Kenya, nothing happens. They go to New York immediately, almost in the span of a month or so. Their cases are decided because there is this mountain of evidence that you can see. These people are clearly crooks who have taken advantage of Kenya's judicial system, but they're not able to get away with it in a place where a judge can, look at the evidence and say, my goodness, how have you been, conducting yourself and,
unfortunately,
exacting the right punishment. So I'm saying on the whole, we're facing a situation here where there is blame on both sides.
True.
But to quote, someone who spoke on Saturday, there is such a thing as a greater right. And the greater right here is on Maraga's side, because he's saying, give me what I need for us to do our jobs better.
Or at least give me audience.
Exactly, or at least give me audience.
But, for purpose of discussion, okay, it is him who has said he has sought audience.
But we have not heard from the other side.
Thank you very much, Eric.
All right. Take a pause there. 21 minutes after 7, the conversation continues. Let's take a look at weather, and then we come back and actually interrogate what Maraga is saying. He is seeking audience with the president, and is feeling that the president is directly and expressly disobeying court orders. What does that mean for the country? Good morning. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
And mostly cloudy this morning. Rains expected later with highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's showering already in Nyeri, a light drizzle being experienced at 14 degrees, highs of 22, and likely to have rain through into Wednesday. 14 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nakuru. Rains expected later with highs of 23 and lows of 13. Eldoret at 13 degrees and partly cloudy now. Thunderstorms expected for later in the day with highs of 20 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 20 degrees. The rain coming in will lead us well into thunderstorms for Wednesday. Kakamega is the same, currently mostly cloudy conditions, but the rain will come through. Mombasa is 24 degrees and mostly sunny, highs of 28 and lows of 24. The same in Malindi, where rain is expected later with highs of 29. In Kampala at 19 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. We will see thunderstorms later with highs of 24. Dar es Salaam follows suit with rains in the afternoon, currently standing at 23 degrees. And clear skies. Johannesburg at 6 degrees is clear skies. Highs of 18 and lows of 4. And we'll wrap things up in Lagos for now, where thunderstorms already coming down. Where it's still 5 a.m. this morning. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 24.
It's The Situation on Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room this morning, C.T. Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and social commentator Brian Obara, who's also our programs controller, our executive director, or executive producer of this show. Brian, you participated in authoring a report on Kenya's judiciary through 3 presidential election petitions.
Yeah.
And those 3 were which ones?
From 2013 and the 2 in 2017.
All right. So the 2013 one and the 2 in... Any President Uhuru has had 3 petitions against him. Hey, and you expect the man to just say, Chief Justice, come. Anyway,
It's
the book
remarkable, isn't it?
the report is 60 Days of Independence. Just as we continue this conversation, what are the key findings here? What did you find out about our judiciary and executive?
Well, as I've said in our previous discussions of the thing about what we put in the book is about 30% of exactly what we found out, and the 30% itself isn't that flattering. Whether it comes to the judiciary or the executive itself, but the broad strokes. I think what we found out is we have to guard our court jealously, and so far we have not. And it's nobody's fault really, other than what we have as a culture in the country, in which a lot of people in power think that might is always right and they should always get their way. And if you look around, you know who those people are, and they're not necessarily all of them in government. So a lot of these people have benefited from the impunity that pervades our culture, and it's very difficult to check that when you are a court that isn't well funded and is full of people who have benefited from the system of impunity, and they're the ones who sit in judgment, often in some cases. So what Maraga and every Chief Justice has faced is a court that is very difficult to set right.
So they lack independence because they have no control of their finances. Basically, is that it?
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it, but it's not just that only. We need a lot more support for the court from the executive and also from the people themselves. You see, I'd like to say this. You see, the only Chief Justice who has enjoyed a proper mandate when it comes to support from Kenyans has been the former Chief Justice, Willy Mutunga. Even Maraga hasn't really enjoyed that. So what you have is a situation where, you see, when we were children...
by support, you mean what? Public confidence?
Yeah, public confidence. When we were children, the natural inclination for most of us is that justice is, part of nature, that it exists by itself and we don't really have to defend it. But what you learn through life is that, ordinary people make justice happen. So it's not just about the court standing up for itself, but the people also being the biggest supporters of the court, so that no person in power can think of trying to interfere with courts and think that they can get away with it. But what we have so far faced is many situations in which courts' decisions have been disregarded, and people have attacked the court with no consequences. So what we have is a court that really needs to be more carefully defended than it has, but it has not really gotten that support.
What in
Kenyans.
essence you're saying is that we have a situation where, despite having a new constitution, the central government that we thought we had devolved never really got devolved.
Never.
Because the plight of the judiciary is the same plight that counties face. They have no control over their finances. Not really. Yes.
Yeah.
They get crumbs every once in a while. Okay? So, right from the very structure in which we have, should we say, tried to implement devolution, or we've tried to implement the new constitution, therein lies the flaw. Because the independence that we speak of, whether it is of parliament or whether it is of the judiciary, whether it's of the counties,
independent commissions,
there's really no independence.
There's no independence when you cannot determine how much you're going to spend.
Even when it's allocated to you, you can't access it.
You can't even access it.
Yeah.
But also, Brian, going back into the issue of the times when the judiciary feels like it's being attacked by the executive, I think also the executive has also complained on a number of occasions where it feels like it's being attacked by the judiciary, especially in the first judiciary of 2010 constitution, right? Where there was a lot of activism coming from the bench.
That word.
Right? Yes. And that's what the executive was saying. There's a lot of activism coming from the bench. And the public was saying, well, we need this kind of activism. Cases where the executive feels like it's not even being heard. Somebody goes to court and immediately they receive an injunction. Immediately they receive a court order just because they have gone to complain about something that the executive is doing. And the executive is feeling, come on.
But Eric,
allow me to do, okay, so hear the case, but you
Eric,
can't you cannot just be receiving court orders every single
this
time.
I think was more an executive who were not accustomed to actually seeing a
new
court
things.
system work.
Exactly. Exactly.
The court was just doing what the court was supposed to have been
Yes.
doing all along.
Yeah.
They were accustomed to more or less like the court asking them for permission, saying, "So, what should we do here?"
Yeah.
Should we
Yeah.
stop this thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this particular judicial system decided, let's just do the right of the individual. The individual takes a case to court. The court was doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, fine, hold everything until we hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all they were saying.
Which now brings us to the issue of now these 41 judges of the Court of Appeal.
Yes.
JSC goes through a process. JSC presents names to the head of state. The head of state sits on it. The head of state, and this is what Joseph Kenya responds to in the case is that we have responded to the JSC and told them, look, the president has received some information about certain people that you have nominated here. And this information does not allow him, it will not be conscionable for him to go ahead and appoint these people. All right? And this is the back and forth. And I think now that's where both parties failed in terms of finding a way to address that particular issue. So you say that you have received damning information from the National Intelligence Service on certain personalities that we have interviewed, and if this was even during the interview process, and the JSC goes ahead to appoint the same people, to nominate the same people for appointment. The back and forth here. Probably this is also another case of the judiciary also not accepting the fact that the president is not a rubber stamp, and the president trying to show that I am not a rubber stamp.
But he should be a rubber stamp in this circumstance, unless he's willing to, like Maraga.
But he has a
not
duty
just
to protect the public interest.
Yeah,
If
he has a duty
received
to do that.
information-
But you see, all of this is supposition that we're hearing from the president's office.
Yeah.
Can he come clean and tell us what evidence he actually has? Because that's what Maraga also called him to do yesterday. If he says he has actual evidence about how these judges have conducted themselves and they shouldn't be promoted or, given any
Appointed.
appointed to any other positions of responsibility within the judiciary, then they should be out of their current jobs also.
Is it incumbent of the president to tell you what the
Yeah.
intelligence services have told him? No.
Yeah. No, it's not. But you see, this is of a piece with so much else that has happened. I think it's something that we have also captured in the book, and I was saying in our previous discussions, is that there are many examples in which the president's office has shown contempt for the judiciary and the CJ. While we were writing the book, we heard of many instances in which the CJ was trying to get audience with the president and couldn't. And there are many other examples which I can't necessarily say.
So
on
how is
air.
this audience sought?
But you see,
Is it that the office of the Chief Justice writes to State House, the Comptroller, saying we'd like to have audience with the president?
Yeah.
And then what do they receive as feedback?
I think you can even send an SMS or just make a phone call and get to meet the
Then
president.
Well, I think there are very
It
many
shouldn't
answers
be-
you would get in terms
Yeah.
of what's is not available at this time. We will
Yeah.
come back to you. This, that, the other thing. But at the end of the day, audience was not met. It was sought, but it was not met, and that is what has led to this almost stalemate that we have here.
Yeah.
But I think obviously that the exclamations of the CJ yesterday put him in a very precarious situation, because if we're going to go bareback in terms of everything that has been done on both sides, then really on what kind of, can I almost say, moral ground do we stand on? Because if you look at the actions, or in some cases inaction, of the judiciary across board, and then you're asking at this point, look, I want to appoint these 41 people. We've done the interviews. We've gone and done the due diligence, as it were, to make sure that we can have these people serve in this capacity. You then, as the executive, are telling us that you've received information that there's something dodgy here or there about these certain individuals. I can then also call out and say, well, on your side, there are certain things that you have done as the executive, or in this case, not done, especially when it comes to these orders, and say, well, we can both call out each other on one side or the other. For me, that doesn't give anybody the reason then to then act or not act. To say that, well, two wrongs don't make a right.
They don't.
If you have not done something, doesn't then mean that then I have the right or the authority to call you out because I myself have not done it. I think we need to be clean on both sides to be able to say that, all right, there's certain things that we have not been able to do, but that has all been thrown into the mix now, and then you cannot see the expansion of justice, for example. You can't see certain things done because we're calling out each other, and I think that's what it is now. I think we have now, unfortunately, a play of egos in the ring right now. And that's the unfortunate thing, because it's going to hold us at some point whereby you say, like we said before, there is really nothing that cannot be sorted out with just really bearing of knuckles here and saying, this is what we are really, really dealing with.
Yeah.
Didn't the president know that he was appointing Maraga, or did Maraga appoint himself?
The president appointed him.
But you see, part of this dysfunction
This
could be
But there's
very.
somewhere I'm going with
Where
this.
are you heading? Because I can see.
We can see it behind your eyes, CT.
I'm saying, I know what you're saying, City. But you see, part of this dysfunction, there was some, when we were writing the book again, who suggested that part of this dysfunction is deliberate. And I think there are many
Of course
examples
it
of
is.
this.
If you were sitting in that seat, my friend, you would pull some strings that would be deliberate.
If
Yes.
you are looking at what
Protect your
happened
side.
with the EACC, the history of the EACC in terms of, functionally rendering it dysfunctional, and then also the IEBC as it currently is constituted, you can get a sort of like an operational dysfunction that is happening.
Well, for sure, I hear Maraga saying very clearly in not as many words that, you know what, you can't call us out on 41 on these cases where you are pinpointing some people for having misbehaved, as it were, when you yourself in that
misbehaving.
yes, when you yourself in that
No.
position are refusing something as simple as court orders. You can't call us out on one when you yourself are misbehaving.
In
And
fact,
that's
he
what
even
we
went
hear
further
him
than that.
saying.
He even said, we can't even keep praying to God to bless us.
and we are sinning.
But how long after Maraga's appointment did these issues start coming up?
How long after?
Tell us, CT.
There's a reason why I'm asking. You see,
I know what you're saying.
yes, it isn't as
shall
though
revisit.
it isn't as though when Maraga was appointed, he and the presidency or his office and the presidency were in disagreement. I'm sure there was a time they got along quite well.
Actually,
for sure.
there's an anecdote in the book. Actually, not an anecdote because it's a straight news report. In 2017, during the campaigns, Uhuru actually took credit for Maraga when he was campaigning on the
in
campaign
Kisii,
stamp.
and said,
Yeah, he said,
Democracy
yeah,
Did I not?
Yeah, did I not? So at some point, Uhuru soured on Maraga, and
The question
think
I want to
that's what
ask is
City saying.
how well does the office of the Chief Justice get along with the office of the Attorney General and the Solicitor General? Because remember, the AG is the advisor
Yep.
to the government.
Yep.
Okay? So even as you're talking about the president, please understand there's a buffer here. It's called the AG.
Yep.
So if the AG and the CJ don't get along,
Then the CJ and the presidency will not get along.
it will be and may be
It
seen.
may be seen.
Yes, as though the
As if,
president
yes.
and the CJ are actually not getting along. And it may not necessarily be the case. But if you are to be blunt about this thing, if the government has an issue that they feel the judiciary should perhaps consider in their favor, because there are such issues, and the office of the CJ or the justice system blatantly refuses to, you think the executive is just going to sit
There's
by
going to be pushback.
and just going to be watching you?
They'll
They'll
be
say,
reminded.
"Oh."
Yeah.
There's the aha moment. Aha. So that is it.
And it's the same thing that happens when the executive does not obey some court orders. Sometimes the judiciary wants to remind the executive.
And these are very important court orders.
Yes. Sometimes the judiciary will come up with another decision to remind the executive that
This pissing contest is not necessary.
and it doesn't help us.
No, it doesn't help us at all. That's why I said, at some point,
It hurts us.
no, terribly, terribly. It isn't as though we have not had situations that are far more vicious, far more polarizing than this one that we're talking about. This one here is what you call a garden variety disagreement.
I actually don't find anything wrong with what's
No,
happening
it's much
I
sort
think
of a
it's
much
healthy.
higher caliber than the
No.
garden variety
No, it's
I
garden
think it's
variety.
healthy.
No, it's garden variety if you
because of
compare.
its consequences.
Yes,
If you compare it with others that could go dangerously
and
south.
we eventually had a handshake. This is what I was
Right.
heading with this
Yes.
thing here.
Yeah.
Right? There can be a handshake.
in this particular one. Well, let's
Can
take a
be a
look at traffic.
conversation.
Let's look at
Yeah.
traffic.
I'm not sure whether you see
The conversation continues. 0719-012-600. We'll open the phone lines shortly so that you can join in this conversation as well. Let's take a look at traffic. Good morning.
All right, terrible accident. Right after Mlolongo near the Signature Mall. Drive carefully, please. Two lorries involved. That's definitely going to attract or affect traffic then heading down Mombasa Road. So you want to approach with caution, and you're not going to go very fast anyway because traffic has already increased on that road. So that's affecting traffic on Mombasa Road this morning. Then getting down into the CBD from Thika Road will not be too terrible this morning. Getting in from the Globe Cinema roundabout and then heading into the CBD, that looks all right. And coming out of Westlands as well, shouldn't be so bad either. We'll take a look at what's happening in other parts, but for now, that's what we have this morning. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let's know what you see. Traffic is not too terrible this morning. Hope it stays that way.
The situation in the conversation continues. Well, we're taking a look at what happened yesterday. The Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya came out and issued a statement. And in that statement, basically, he was saying, I want to speak to the president. And the president, I want to remind you that you have broken especially two very crucial court orders. One, a multi-judge bench has sat and asked you to take the nominees of 41 judges of the court, 41 judges actually, and appoint them. And the president has so far not appointed them. Mm-hmm. And then there are many other court orders that the executive has failed to obey. And the Chief Justice is basically telling the president, look, you are not living according to the ideals of the oath of office that you saw. Right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing that this is happening now. It points us to something. The fact that a Chief Justice can stand and speak and get into his car and go home and sleep, and we haven't heard anything about the Chief Justice now, he's fine.
He'll go to work this morning.
Yes, he'll go to work this morning. This shows that our Constitution is working. But also it shows what is not working about the Constitution.
Yeah, it does. It does. But you see...
And it's a good thing that the executive is doing what you are accusing it of doing. Trying to hold on to its power.
You're losing me there.
Trying to hold on onto its onto its power, trying to hold on to its influence, because it exposes that unless you do this, you may have any executive that can come in and will reverse all the gains that we've made. And these are the backdoors that the executive can use.
I wish I shared your confidence that what the executive is up to here is trying to achieve some sort of high-minded ideals.
No, it's not.
There are those who are actually say...
particularly its own interest.
Yeah, its own interest. And some of this might actually be no more than just, short-sighted arrogance. I think Dennis Itumbi yesterday, who used to work for the Presidential Communication Unit, yesterday he revealed part of what was going on with the Miguna issue, and he actually asked for Kenya's forgiveness, for the forgiveness of Kenyans for the part he played in that, which is that he confessed.
And we're supposed to believe.
Wait. I think in this moment, I'm prepared to be charitable.
Okay.
But
what did he say?
Here's what he said. He said he was called by Kibicho and Matiang'i, and they explained to him what exactly they were up to with the Miguna thing, which they knew was, wrong, but they wanted him to support their endeavor, and he said this was wrong. I should have stood by what is right, but it was their officer's intention at this moment to disobey the court order, which would allow Miguna to be back in the country.
It's okay. It's good enough for Dennis Itumbi to tell us this.
It's a convenient
but you see, these things are all over
piece. It's a bit of an overreach to imagine that a CS and a PS would
give him a call and say, this is actually what our position was. We want you to understand what we were doing.
To explain
to
themselves.
him.
But
anyway,
you see,
that's not the point.
The point is this. Some of this might just be short-sighted arrogance.
Right.
By people who are trying to seem as if they're doing their jobs in the eyes of those that they report to.
Yeah.
And here I would like to also point to another example in the book where during the shenanigans around the arrest of the deputy CJ for the charges that she faced in 2018 now, there was an exchange between Maraga and the DCI. And Kinoti is reputed to have told the CJ, who do you think you are? when he was trying to, come in between.
What was Maraga coming in between? What was Maraga doing?
I think Maraga wanted it to happen in a certain way, and the DCI was.
He wanted to influence how the DCI is doing
exactly.
his job.
They're no.
do you think
Listen. He is the boss of the judiciary, so I think it falls on him to make sure things happen in a certain way when it comes to the officers that report to him. So I don't think he was necessarily saying don't arrest her, but he was saying arrest her in a certain way, or at least let's agree on how we're going to do this.
Which is trying to influence.
But
how the
what
DCI
came
is
off
doing
the
his job.
exchange?
Brian, that
is
works
the
if you
contempt.
have a relationship and you have a way of communicating.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't even.
Because these
need
are
to be
favors.
public. Yes, this is just heshima too.
No, but you see, for me, this. What came out of that exchange is what I consider important, not exactly
who do you think you
what
are?
happened. Yeah, who do you think you are? And those are sentiments that we have had come certain offices that right now are also, hobbling the CJ's office.
What did you take that to mean?
What I took that to mean is that there are people who, despite our constitutional order, think the CJ should know his place.
All right.
And that's, I think, what's happening
Is it
on
important?
the whole with the issues between the executive and the judiciary.
But is that not a true statement that the CJ should know his place?
Depends on the context, because the CJ should know his place, and his place is a sacred responsibility to interpret and run our judiciary to make sure that it functions in such a way as to correct the imbalance of power between us the people and those who wield power
And
in the
in
executive
doing so,
especially.
you should never appear to be influencing the course of justice.
course not.
Especially the investigative arm.
The head of a police
Of course not, but I don't think that's what Maraga was doing, because if he was doing that, then he would have
to apply
had.
pressure on the executive arm. That's why the investigative arm will tell you, who do you think you are, man? You're not the boss of me.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Essentially,
That's the bottom
What
line.
makes you think you know my job better than I do?
You're not the boss of me.
For that to come out, believe me, it isn't as though someone had gone to ask for a favor. One gets the impression somebody was being given instruction. He said, "Excuse me,
Boss.
who are you to give me instructions?" Essentially, that's when such a response would come. Look, when you have various branches of the government working well, or the people who head them have taken the time and bother to be on good terms with their colleagues, then certain things don't get into the public eye.
Yeah.
What we know of is that things are moving swimmingly. But when certain things that shouldn't come to the public, then what we're seeing is the tail end of certain things that have been in place for quite some time.
Yeah.
I do not understand how it is that an officer who heads a unit of a government like the judiciary can actually not possibly meet the president. I cannot understand. If I'm talking about the office, but if Maraga is trying to meet Uhuru, there may be a problem there.
There is. And you see,
The two persons.
yeah.
Yes,
Not
there may
the
be-
two officers.
No, not
The
the
two
two officers.
offices.
No.
You see, I find what Maraga said yesterday, I think the import of what he said is quite alarming. Because like I said, you see, the judiciary is supposed to serve Kenyans in that it's not just interpreting the law, but also, offsetting these imbalances when they do happen. So that when someone has been harmed by the state and is required to be compensated, they should be compensated.
Yeah.
But if you have a situation in which that is not happening, and there are hundreds of examples of this, then there is an issue. And I think what Maraga said yesterday that should be very alarming to all of us is the judiciary is supposed to do one thing, check power and address these imbalances of power. But it's as it is presently constituted, it's doing a disservice to Kenyans because it's not rendering justice in a timely fashion, or even when it can, it's being impeded by the executive.
Unfortunately, though, what that also shows is that it would give the impression that with the appointment of these 41 individuals, that is then how that it would be seen that justice is being served to the people of Kenya. Can we absolutely say that if these 41 people were instituted, for example, If they were in now these positions, we would see the justice wheels turning right across the country. And unfortunately, we can't say that. Because if we go back to what CT had been saying before, with what they had and with the spots that they were able to fill with what they had previously, did we see that justice was being expended? Did we see that there were no bottlenecks? Did we see that cases went on without any problem? Did we see that with the little that they had, they were able to do that? Because the impression that is being given is that the only thing that stops the judiciary essentially from doing its job and serving Kenyans is the appointment of these 41 judges.
No, I think
That's
I hold
not
a
what he
different
said. I don't think
opinion.
that's necessarily what he said.
But from where I sit, appointing the 41 judges is important.
It's very important.
Because you continue allowing the judiciary to be more efficient in its delivery of justice.
Yeah.
There are people who are sitting in remand who need Court of Appeal judges. But a Court of Appeal judge, even the ESCC boss sat here and told us, the next go today in some of these like in environment court, and you'll be given a date for 2022. And you need more judges. You need more judges to be able to sit so that they can share this workload. So it's important that we have more and more judges appointed. And are we going to see a difference? If those judges are appointed today, are we likely to see a difference? Maybe not directly. But for the people who are in remand, the people who actually require those services, and you went and interviewed them and polled them, they might start telling you, yes, there was movement.
Eric, what is the ideal ratio of students to teachers?
To teachers.
What is the ideal ratio of patients to doctors?
Doctors.
What is the ideal ratio of judicial officers to perpetrators or people who need the services of the law?
And police officers to citizens.
I was heading in that direction. There is none in this country that meets that so-called quota or that desired ratio.
At all.
So the judiciary should stop this crying wolf and
not really, City. City, when you're talking about a court that has 21 or 15 judges and has thousands of cases, the CJ yesterday was very clear. How are you filing a case today and the next hearing is in...
It's next year.
Yeah, it's next year, surely.
Chief.
Is that judiciary built for justice?
We haven't met any of this threshold, but there has been attempts.
They have not.
There have been attempts at least trying to address the numbers.
COVID is what has made the government try.
Over the years,
Very
there's been an
puny
increase.
attempts.
Over the years, there's been a marked increase in the number of police officers who are employed. All right. Over the years, there's a marked increase in the number of teachers. Not sufficient. Not meeting the quota. Not meeting the quota. Not sufficient. Even the doctors will still tell you not meeting the quota. Not sufficient. But when we had the now man in charge of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services Health, Oluga, when he was Secretary General of KMPDU, he said, "Well, yes, we have not yet reached there, but we are making progress." It's the same thing. When Mutunga came in and the Judicial Service Commission, there was a purge of judicial officers. There were new judicial officers who were hired. It's the same thing. Let's keep increasing this number. It doesn't mean that until we get we satisfy the ratio of police officers, then judiciary can start talking. No.
You know, I'm going back to the question that I raised. You know, we don't have the right quota of teachers that we would like to see. Learning takes place. Students keep going to school, even if there's 60 or 70 students in a class.
1 million students are still passing exams at the end of the
we
year.
still find our hospital jam-packed with patients, and the few doctors who are there attend to them.
Yeah.
The point I'm actually making, I think you understand. I am saying that there isn't a clear indication of the output that we have had with the service and the numbers that we have in the judiciary. We hear more complaints about needing more people than what actually should be done. Like this case that we'll be looking at later, where the courts actually determined that there was absolutely nothing wrong in the police services proceeding in a certain manner if they felt that that was the way in which they could get the evidence that they required, and that negating it would actually be a disservice to justice. Okay? It is good. But surely, are you telling me that if the court system put their mind to it, that they would not find a solution? If, let's say, for instance, we didn't have the money and we couldn't employ a single judge, a single magistrate, if we didn't have the money, are you telling me that the judicial service would not be able to do what it's supposed to do?
They would be able.
Yes.
And that's why they're still doing what they're doing.
Yeah, but it's a question of what quality of justice do Kenyans deserve also.
Yeah.
It's not
It
just
isn't as though the numbers since the Uhuru government came in have not been increased. Am I right? They've been increased, but they required more.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying we
And they
are
were in the process of actually getting more. It's not that this was a push by the Judicial Service Commission. It was, an underhand push. No,
No, it wasn't an
it was
underhand push.
well-agreed
We
process.
are
It's
a
just that
resource-
there's some particular individuals that the president is not comfortable with.
yeah.
we're a resource-constrained country.
And that's we see what you just said is very important for us to consider at this moment. Is that what exactly is Uhuru's position in all of this? What does the law say he can do, and what is he
not
doing right now? Because I think the reason we are saying Maraga is on the right is because Uhuru doesn't have the powers that he says he has in this question. He should really just do the rubber stamp roll and let this thing roll. If there is a fault later, then it's on Maraga's shoulders and not his.
So why are you thinking that? So what interest? Okay. So what interest then do you see the chief executive of this country then having in seeing that he doesn't just play a rubber stamp role and letting things go on as they would through the offices of the chief justice?
I see what you're asking me there, and I really would like to speak my mind about it, but I know better.
I mean,
okay,
what are you trying to say
listen,
then?
what-
What would he have to lose or gain by not allowing him, or by not just playing the rubber stamp role?
Okay, I think, I'm going to deflect your question a bit because I think it to be responsible of me to answer it at this moment and say what I really think.
Okay.
But this is what I'd like to say. You see, in school, what they taught us is there is such a thing as ethical fading, which is usually the people who end up stealing money from your company. What they usually start with is they, steal a couple of staples and, reams of paper. And then eventually they graduate to, a full-scale fraud. So in this particular instance, what I think is dangerous in terms of what the executive is up to, which is why I think I'm calling Uhuru a monarch, is that if he feels that he is the interpreter of the law, that the constitution can say one thing and then he can do another, and things will just roll on. It's dangerous where we're going, because then you have a situation where all of this thing adds up, and eventually he says, I don't even need a chief justice, and I could lose this one and not replace him. We can just have a judiciary that's run straight from State House now. And I don't think we're very far from that.
Yeah, your imagination.
No.
friend.
I'm saying, listen,
Hey,
that's
I am a student of history, and some people think these things are completely far-fetched, but I think it's entirely possible. Because let me, for example, point out something that we've discussed before, and some people think is completely ordinary, but I think is another, demolition of a constitutional guardrail that I think is very important. Why is it, for example, that we consider to be ordinary for the president to have his party meetings at State House, and for the presidential spokesperson to issue releases on behalf of the presidency when we're talking about a party issue? Because then we have completely muddled the distinction between what is
The word
Jubilee.
there is obfuscated.
Obfuscated.
Yes.
Party and state.
Party and state. What's the difference?
We've merged them.
We have merged them. And I think all of these things are of a piece, to be honest. Because what we have is a president that is completely lawless. Completely. 110%. Uhuru can do what he wants.
When he calls a parliamentary group meeting, when he calls a parliamentary group meeting in State House, I don't think there's anything wrong there. But anyway, we can discuss.
No,
this
he cannot.
No,
He cannot
no,
have
no.
party meetings at State House. That's the people's house.
Parliamentary party, not party delegates.
but
Party
let's
delegates is
not
something
get-
different.
Yeah.
Parliamentary group, right? Parliamentary group. This is, what is a parliamentary group? Parliamentary group is members of parliament.
It's an arm of
Fine,
government.
Eric.
It's an arm of government.
Fine, Eric.
And he's a party leader.
Fine, Eric.
Basically, I think
Fine,
we can
Eric.
have another
You and I,
conversation. But
reasonable people can disagree on this issue.
Yes.
But I was
Let's-
pointing to
let's-
something.
let's
I
come
was
back
pointing
to
to something.
the monarch.
Ndu and CT and Eric, I was pointing to something. If I, as a motivated citizen and, someone who cares about things like this, had an issue with what Uhuru was doing with this in terms of making his spokesperson issue statements, what would I do? I would go to the
courts.
Exactly. So, and this matter would be resolved when exactly?
Oh, give or take a
Never.
couple of years.
No.
Under a certificate
you
of
see,
urgency.
Urgency.
How, yes.
How
you see,
quickly would you
what I'm
like-
pointing to here is exactly what I was saying. We have a judiciary right now which isn't built for purpose. If its purpose is dispensing justice, then what justice is it dispensing?
So are you saying by the actions of the president, or in some cases the inaction of the president, you have a judiciary that could be likened to a lame duck? Is that what you're saying?
Completely.
And this is deliberate by the
No, the
executive.
judiciary is not a lame duck. No.
Okay. Reasonable people can disagree, but
It's
I
not.
think
It's
it's not
not.
doing what it's supposed to.
Oh, no.
And
And we
it's-
cannot
it's-
heap all
it's-
the blame on the
Actually,
executive.
I have to disagree
It's
with
doing a
that.
lot.
Completely. This judiciary, in many ways, one of the most vibrant judiciaries I have ever seen in the time I've lived on this planet and in this country.
By which scale is that?
By the scale of other judiciary services that we've had before.
By the scale of comparative analysis, and you look
Yeah,
at what has
very
happened
simple
previously.
comparative analysis. In the days of Semwa, Kenya, when you'd have a court hearing at night,
Yes.
you could be called in and jailed the following day. Yani speedy.
Let's go to the top of the hour. The hour is short. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. What's today's proverb again? It's from who are those people?
Ovambe.
The Vambe.
No, Ovambo.
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 Right.
Bombo.
Right?
Vowels.
Namibia, that country next to South Africa?
All right.
Okay,
beer.
that one. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The beer thing is this. It says, anyone who does not have patience, I'm paraphrasing here, cannot make beer. Beer takes a process
Tell
to
that to
actually make.
Maraga. Okay.
You should just take on
The
small,
man has
small.
been very patient.
Take on small, small.
It's 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation continues. Good morning.
All right, Muthaiga Corner is causing some problems this morning as you try to then access the Thika Superhighway. It's traffic, it's crazy. Survey Muthaiga service lane. It's a place to be avoided this morning. There is traffic all the way from the river. Go to Ngong Road and you'll be fine because there's no traffic there whatsoever. And you'll be fine heading out into the CBD. But for now, the Thika Road is where you don't want to be. The accident that took place on Mombasa Road right around Malongo and the Signature Mall still being sorted out now. 2 lorries happened to collide this morning. And so that affects traffic in a huge way this morning. Those are the 2 trouble spots we see right now. Getting off Mombasa Road further down towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout will not be too crazy. You'll be fine getting in and out of the CBD as far as that's concerned, but you want to be careful in those other areas. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. It is Tuesday morning. Things are moving along swimmingly before we saw what we've seen right now.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth,
2.5
Kenyan
minutes
by
after
choice,
8 o'clock.
communications
This
expert,
is the Situation Room,
Pan-Africanist,
Kenya's biggest
a truth
conversation.
seeker
And the
believer
conversation
in
continues
people
on
power.
94.4 in
And
Nairobi,
Eric
87.9
Latin,
in
agent
Mombasa,
provocateur,
102.5
the man in the chair,
96.0
seasoned journalist,
Nakuru,
news hound,
96.7
a man who
Eldoret,
believes
Nyeri,
in punching up,
90.9,
not
Malindi,
down.
97.7.
This is the
Live streaming from
Situation
Nairobi
Room,
to the world.
the only way to start your day.
.co.ke. We're also on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And you can also follow us on Instagram, Spice FM KE. And whenever you want to call us, you can call in on 0719 012 600. In the room this morning is C.T. Muga, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and social commentator who's our executive producer for the show as well, Brian Obara. So we were looking at what the CJ and the president have doing, and what do we expect to see next, actually, as we wind up this conversation and going to the next one. What do we expect to see next? Is the president going to respond to CJ? Should he?
He should.
And say what?
I do the right thing. Not necessarily say. I think we've had enough words.
By the way, I had never seen any of your messages. Oh God, I didn't know that you were looking for me. So come, tell me. Oh.
Yeah. No, I think things are coming to a head, given what the CJ said yesterday and what the LSK chair said. And I think a responsible executive...
President. We're talking about three presidents here. President of the Supreme Court, President of the Republic,
the
and
three
President of the Law Society.
Yeah. And maybe this is why, an example of why we need more women in leadership, because I don't think it would have been the case if we had a single woman in any of those offices.
Okay.
Things would have come to this situation. Don't you agree?
Well, of course, you
women are on the whole
that is
more reasonable.
Go back to the
rubbed
line.
it the right way.
Wait. Okay.
What were you saying? What do you expect?
I'm saying
to see
a
happen?
responsible executive would try to de-escalate at this moment. And like I said, you see, if the president is trying to have his way, which is clearly doing, the only way to address this thing is some sort of compromise. And I think appointing the judges and at least, coming clean on why certain orders were not, adhered to would be very responsible. Because I'd say where we are right now is a situation in which the executive is being very irresponsible. Because the lesson about ethical fading is that slowly things disassemble and you get into very dangerous and choppy waters without knowing, and they can even harm you.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think the executive ought to come out and say, this is why we are disobeying this court order. Or, actually, don't even say this is why we are disobeying. You should not disobey it. This is why we are going to contest this court order. And go ahead and appeal. Follow the due process and appeal. And in this particular case of appointment of the 41 judges, if indeed the head of state has received some damning, incriminating evidence from the intelligence services about certain personalities, then I'm sure there are very many mechanisms that exist in which the head of state can actually communicate this to the Judicial Service Commission, or if not the Judicial Service Commission as a whole, the President of the Supreme Court, and say, this, as a chairman of the Judicial Service Commission, this is why we cannot appoint this person. And also, even if it means that you swear the CJ to the same oath of secrecy, go ahead and say, when I tell you this, you're not going out to tell Ndu, NIS wako na faili yako, my friend. Yeah. I mean, each of them has that responsibility and to go ahead and
I think when it comes to
treat it casually,
this evidence that they're collecting on the various judges, it's something that we also heard about when we were doing the report. And the import of it is a bit dangerous in that you hear that evidence has been collected against certain judge, and it's not being brought to the public. Then you wonder what it's being used for. I think I will leave it at that. But I think it's something. It's something Kenyans should take very seriously.
It's a nice tool.
Brian seems to be implying there's something ominous about it. There's some dark.
Implying. I'm stating.
Well, I think he's saying it quite clearly.
Yeah, I think the Russians call it compromat.
The thing is,
with a K.
Remember, I do not want to even begin to assume that I understand what the functions of the judiciary are beyond what every layperson understands. But by the same token, I'm also not going to pretend that I understand the workings of the government. And I'll say this. You see, if the government says it has issues with some of those people, I will take it that they have issues. If they choose to tell us, then they will. If they don't,
we move on.
But I think we should, because really, some of those issues may not be issues you want to publicize. They may be issues you don't want to bring to the public. So just in any way, we're not going to employ you, lakini,
but they are employed.
And leave it at that.
Some of them are not.
Okay, some of them are. That's what the Chief Justice was saying, that you can't be telling me,
There are some people here who are so tainted that they cannot move us.
And yet they still have their jobs.
There are people who
Action should be taken, CT, I think. If you've received this damning evidence against somebody, so why not commence?
Action is action. You know, I began by preambling what I'm saying by saying I cannot presume to understand. What I'm actually trying to say is I cannot presume to understand what the thinking of government is when it comes to why they're making the decision that they're making. By the same token, I cannot presume to understand what is actually going on in the judiciary and why it is that this stiff doesn't seem to come to an end. And yet, it's this same president who appointed this person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also believe that as we look at all of this and bring it all to a head, by the time that Maraga came out and made this announcement in public, in the manner in which he did yesterday, it is indicative of so much more. It wasn't just coming out and making a statement because he couldn't reach the president. Obviously, there was something much more than this announcement that he was making. There was a point further to which that he was hoping Kenyans would then be able to interpret that he was making. And I think it's very clear that it was beyond just the appointment of 41 judges. It was beyond the ignorance of court orders. It was a larger message that he was trying to put out there in terms of the powers that they are or are unable to expend as the judiciary, about what he felt was lawful or unlawful coming from the position of the executive, and giving a wider picture in terms of really how justice is actually observed in this country and how independent, or in this case, not independent the judiciary is than with the work that they're supposed to be doing. And I think there are many layers to the messaging that he was sending out yesterday. And to do it in the manner in which he did, there was something that he was trying to say. Beyond that, I do feel that there's conversation that needs to be had. I think there needs to be a consensus of ideas. There needs to be a consensus of egos. There needs to also be a conference of egos where they sit down and say, look, let's have this conversation, because apart from just doing your job, in terms of how the wheels of justice should turn, there also needs to be the appearance of to the people. And they also have to be satisfied in one way or another that there really is no drama going on.
Yeah.
Because what have we done now? We've thrown everybody's opinions into a tailspin here in the country now. And people are starting to ask the question, really, maybe things aren't as pretty as we thought they were. So apart from doing your job, you have to give the people satisfaction in terms of appearance of what is being done. And I think that has been toppled greatly.
It's very important. And to go back to your point about what you're saying, Maraga was trying to tell Kenyans yesterday. I think it's no stretch to say what he was telling Kenyans yesterday is that we have a lawless presidency. You know, there's this quote by Emerson.
Actually, that's what he said.
In so many
Short of
words, that's what you're
short of
saying.
saying it,
That
he
we
said
have
it.
we have a president who doesn't care about the constitution and thinks his word should be final, and that's in effect what's been happening since 2017. There are so many examples of Uhuru just riding roughshod.
You know, in my experience,
Huduma number. There are
yes,
many.
in my experience, the president indeed should be censured for not following the dictates of the law, because he's supposed to actually uphold them. But for the president or the presidency to appear to ignore what the chief, forget the law, just ignore what the Chief Justice may want to say, it means the Chief Justice probably has feet of clay. I do not know what it is that he has opened himself to, but there's some serious chink in that guy's armor. Because if there was no chink, believe me, the president would pay very keen attention every time this fellow had something to say. What the chink in the armor is, I don't know. But in my experience, there usually is some chink.
Something.
There is some chink in the CJ's armor. And that is why the executive can look and say,
You have spoken, okay, moving on.
Okay, now moving on swiftly.
Umemaliza.
Umemaliza, okay, sawa. Nani, ulikuwa unasemaje? Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you make a serious point, CT. All I'll say is around the same time before charges were brought against the Deputy Chief Justice, we heard that there was a lot of talk about what charges might be brought on against who, and I think it goes to CT's point that there might be something.
There are files.
There are certain files. And this is why I think, like I said, it's
So
dangerous
nobody's
for...
clean in this country, all right? And this is where the problem is, that nobody's clean. Even when you look at these members of parliament who are being thrown left, right, and center, all of them, they're just fearing what file is going to be pulled out.
Yeah.
Because there's a file against everybody. So
There
this
is.
is our problem. And if we look at how we can then entrench and ensure that our Constitution of Kenya 2010 upholds what we went and voted for, then we have We have to have these honest conversations.
Then you
And
wonder.
maybe somebody could come out and say, you know what, guys? So here is a file that I expect these guys to have on me. I'm coming out and I'm telling you what I have done. These are all my sins. If you guys still feel that I am fit to be your Chief Justice, please raise your hands. Now there's nothing. You have nothing on me.
Yeah.
But you
Who will never do that?
You see, what if we go by the argument that we have actually been having so far, then it means you have, say, a tainted executive. They are going to make sure that if there is an appointment to an office like that of the CJ, my friend, you have to be tainted.
They have to have something.
If
on
you are
you.
as clean as a whistle, you'll be a problem.
Yeah.
Somebody always has something on you,
you
and that's how
will,
they're able.
you will have
Look,
a problem.
if you are in a position and somebody doesn't have the way we see things and how things operate, if somebody doesn't have something on you, or if you don't have something on someone else, then it would not be your job. In this case, it would not be easy for things like this to happen.
You know-
Somebody always has something on someone. Chink armor, absolutely.
Sometimes it isn't as though someone has gone around breaking the law.
No,
But
no.
it's in the way they've managed their office.
It could be the slightest of things.
Okay?
City.
Because let me ask the question. Would you say the judiciary is happy with Maraga? Since we're asking this question.
If we did an opinion poll,
Yes, would we
conducted
say
an opinion
that
poll,
he's a really popular
that he'll
CJ?
get a
And
70%
judges are
rating.
extremely, in fact, judges
In
are
fact, they're
extremely
also behind him and would
in
ask.
fact, they're saying
would
that
ask
this man
for-
should actually stand for
one of the
for
problems you may
presidency.
have while conducting that poll is, are we going to have people voting basically purely on merit?
In merit, yeah.
Or are some of them going to be looking at him from that lens of...
Put another way, is the fact that he has done his job going to work against him?
Yes.
And the question one should ask is, has
In
he
the
actually
judiciary.
done his job?
That's open to interpretation, but you could say that when it comes to our current judiciary, it could work against him simply if he has been effective. If he has been effective, it could be,
And therein
something
lies
that
the
could
other
work
question.
against
Effective
it.
according
But
to
you see,
whom?
there's something I'd like to remind, if they're listening, I'd like to remind the Chief Justice and the President, which is a quote by Emerson about how every institution is more or less the shadow of the person that runs it. If that person is ethical and, moral, then the institution itself will be that. And I think both of them can look at the institutions and the organizations that they run, and it tells a story. And lastly, I think to be honest, we can be very critical of what the president has done and what the CJ has done, but I think there's also a responsibility that falls on the Kenyans who voted for this constitution to ask themselves, what do they feel about what's going on right now, and what can they do to correct this? Because I think it's always up to the people to say, if something isn't working, how can we fix it?
Yeah.
I need to see a lot more agitation from the average citizen than I'm seeing right now, because the people who are going to really face the consequences of our dysfunctional judiciary is us, the people.
yeah.
And I'd like to there are many examples of this, whether it's the criminal cases that we have against, say, Governor Obado, or the MP Babu Wino. These are things that should be moving much further along to make a statement about impunity in this country than they
or
are.
even the interest
Yeah.
in sorting some of these things out.
Exactly. But we're not seeing it. So I would ask the citizenry, can we just step up? Step up and try and correct this mess, because the people who we have put in power, maybe they are being served more by the dysfunction than they claim.
And the greater good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Thanks.
Voice words. 17 minutes after 8. Let's take a look at the weather, and then we'll change the words a bit and start talking about the judiciary and what the EACC has gained from the judiciary in the recent past. Good morning.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
All right, let's take a look then into Nairobi right now. 16 degrees and mostly cloudy. The chance of rain still high, highs of 23. And in Nyeri, highs of 22 today with showers in the afternoon. Nakuru will experience thunderstorms today quite extensively through the day and into the evening, highs of 23. Eldoret at 15 degrees is mostly sunny right now. That'll all change later with the forecasted thunderstorms with highs of 20 and lows of 12. It's partly cloudy in Kisumu at 21 degrees. Showers expected with highs of 27. It'll be a rainy afternoon in Kakamega with thunderstorms even, highs of 24 and lows of 16. Mombasa is mostly sunny at 25 degrees, experiencing highs of 28. It'll be highs of 29 in Malindi and partly cloudy conditions throughout the day. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 20 degrees, thunderstorms in the afternoon with highs of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees is mostly sunny right now, but showers will change all that soon with highs of 29 and lows of 22. It's 6 degrees and mostly sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 18 and lows of 4. And finally, for now, in Lagos, light thunderstorms have already started. With highs of 31 and lows of 24, it's likely to continue with these wet conditions through till tomorrow morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads. You're listening to Spice FM.
Muga Nduoko, Eric Latif. Remember, the live stream is www.spicefm.co.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
On video and audio. Wow, from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The only station that live streams on the website.
Mornings done right. 94.4.
24 hours a day. Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Now, let's talk about some gains that the EACC has been making in the judiciary. Recently, last week, the EACC got a green light to probe former Governor Evans Kidero's properties, all right? And yesterday, there was a statement that was released by the EACC CEO, Talib Mbarak, and he was basically commending the emerging jurisprudence on unexplained wealth in the country. Some of those cases. Now, in the case of Evans Kidero, the background, if I can just give you the background, the petition emanated from investigations commenced by EACC against Kidero and his associates for suspected unexplained wealth allegedly acquired during his tenure as the MD of Mumias Sugar Company and as the governor of Nairobi County. Kidero and others applied to the court to stop the EACC from investigating them on grounds that the search and seizure warrants obtained in 2016 violated and infringed upon their rights and fundamental freedoms under the Constitution. Now, they also contended that the powers bestowed upon the EACC to conduct criminal investigations were unconstitutional. Now, this is what the court found, that the search and seizure warrants are critical in facilitating corruption investigations so long as they meet the criteria set out in law. A notice to a party against whom a search warrant is sought is not required, as it would defeat the purpose. Basically, what they were arguing is, okay, you want to come and search any part of my property. When you're going to get a warrant, we should also be notified that you are coming.
So that you can have
So that we can now get rid of everything that we could possibly find.
So we can agree on a date.
It's like saying, let's know when the thieves are coming so that
Yeah.
we cannot be there. I mean, really.
give them free passage so that they can steal all they like.
Imagine. Judges also said the search and seizure warrants do not in any way violate the constitutional rights to privacy, for administrative action, or to fair hearing. Okay? A search warrant by the EACC to carry out investigations in respect of unexplained assets applies to any person, whether a public officer or a private individual working in the private sector. So even you, EACC, today can decide, hop, they're coming to carry out investigations. The legal status of Mumia Sugar Company in relation to the exercise, because they had said, is Mumia's really a parastate or a government body? They were told that is irrelevant. It is unlawful for the EACC to register caveats. It is lawful, rather, for the EACC to register caveats and restrictions on property that is subject of investigations. It is okay. So the EACC can say, by the way, everybody just know that there's this and there's a caveat on it. No transaction. If you go and buy this land, we're investigating it. Let's get more insights on this matter. And joining us on the line is the Director of Legal Affairs at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, David Tor. David, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Now, David, I've just read part of the statement by the EACC boss yesterday, but also you can just give us, some meat on this Kidero win, if we may call it that.
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and by extension, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to attend to this interview. What I would say is that much of what you have said in relation to the case touching in Kidero and this associate is the factual position.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is that EACC received information that Kidero and his associates had amassed wealth which was disproportionate to his non-legitimate source of income. Mm-hmm. And first and foremost, maybe for Kenyans to know, what is this that we talk of unexplained wealth? Mm. Unexplained wealth is derives its relevance from the offense of illicit enrichment, as captured in the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption, and also under the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. Mm. And Section 2 of our Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act states that such property or pecuniary possessions that are disproportionate in value to a person's non-source of income and for which there is no satisfactory explanation. That is the catchword. There is no satisfactory
explanation.
Yes. Somebody has amassed a lot of wealth. It is known to be disproportionate to his non-legitimate source of income. Mm. Non-legitimate source of income, not the illegitimate source. And the person has no satisfactory explanation. Mm. So for the case of Kidero, that was the allegation we received.
Okay.
And in order to establish or to verify, the commission obtained warrants to search his premises and also to search his accounts. And in the first instance, Dr. Kidero and his spouse, Dr. Susan Kidero. They filed petitions in the High Court. That was in 2016,
Yeah.
challenging the warrant which had been given by court to investigate their bank accounts. At around the same time, Okia Omutata had also filed a case to say that EACC has no powers to investigate criminal matters. So the case of Okia Omutata and the one for Dr. Gideru were consolidated,
Yeah.
and a 3-judge bench dismissed that petition. So when the petition was dismissed, it now gave way for EACC to apply for the second warrants, which are now subject to the judgment which was delivered recently and which you have talked about. So you can see that there was an initial attempt to block EACC in 2016.
From accessing the bank accounts, basically saying
To
that
accessing the bank account. And EACC was stopped pending the hearing of that petition.
yeah.
And after the matter was consolidated with the case by Omutata and it was dismissed by a 3-judge bench, it now gives EACC the green light to go for the second attempt for such warrant. And it actually went to court, obtained warrants, and signed a premises. Idero again came with his associates. They filed another petition similar to the petition that was filed in 2016. And DACC was stopped again. So it's until recently that we obtained the judgment that DACC can now proceed with further investigation. And perhaps you have captured rightly what they were complaining about in the recent petition.
Explain that bit of saying that you need to be notified if a warrant is issued against you. What was that argument?
So, well, this issue of notification arose from a case filed by Professor Tom Agenda, which was also seeking to stop EACC from undertaking investigation. And he argued that EACC ought to give notice to a party against whom it intends to undertake a search. And that obtaining a search warrant without giving notice to the party infringes Article 47 of the Constitution of Kenya. And the High Court, Lenaola, then agreed with him, and EACC was stopped, and the High Court held that a notice ought to be issued.
Now,
It was appealed by the Court of Appeal. I hope I'm not mixing up things. These are two different cases.
No, it's all right. I think you're
still
still
on the same
explaining
idea.
on the same matter, because the matter is on whether you need to notify me before you even obtain orders against me.
According to the judgment, you need not notify.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
what is this new?
If you are to notify the person, you would be alerting the person.
It's negating the whole process.
To tamper the evidence. It is self-defeating.
Yeah.
Right.
You can not forewarn somebody that you are coming to such his house and maybe there are things which are incriminating.
Now,
That person is likely to hide those things.
David, in terms of this ruling now, what does this now mean for the numerous cases that are waiting, and also for this particular case? What does this then open doors for?
Well, the impact of this ruling, or the judgment, is that ESCC can now proceed to undertake investigations in the usual manner that it has been undertaking, applying to court for such warrants if they deem it is necessary, or for warrants to investigate bank accounts.
So, given the position that the EAC now finds itself in, does this probably mean, therefore, that some of the cases they've had, say, for instance, with respect to governors and other individuals in the country, that this now might actually speed up some of the processes regarding these cases?
Yeah, the judgment, in essence, gives the leeway for EFCC now to proceed, as I said, if they intend to apply for any such warrant or warrants to investigate accounts. Because the court has come out clearly to say that no party being investigated needs to be notified before a such warrant is applied.
It seems to me that this is vital in being able to get any kind of evidence or information that you'd be looking for then to go forward with a case. Now, if you want to look historically at some of the cases that were done before, are we essentially saying that because of the whole constitutional rights issue, the obtaining of these warrants then to be able to look into property and accounts never happened on the basis of constitutional rights?
Well, it has been happening before, but what happened is that in 2008, when we attempted to follow unexplained assets touching on one Stanley Mombo Amuti, which you may be aware of, it has been in the press in the past.
Yeah.
The judge of the High Court, at that time, Justice Rawal, declared Section 55 of Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act unconstitutional, which is actually the section EFCC has been using to go for unexplained big assets.
Yep.
So when the judge declared that section unconstitutional, it held back EFCC from filing other cases for unexplained assets. It's only until around 2014 or 2015 thereabouts when the Court of Appeal overturned the judgment of the High Court, which ruled that Section 55 was unconstitutional. It's only around that time when we now started again to follow up other allegations of unexplained assets. And we commenced the filing with other things. But as for the warrants, the EFCC has been applying for warrants up to 2018 when this issue of notice came up.
And how has it helped? And how has it helped with this application of warrants and then that being used as direct evidence in cases? How has that helped to either close cases or at least move along the progression of cases previously?
You see, the issue of warrants is very crucial when you are undertaking an investigation, because you are able to obtain information which you may not have obtained in any other way, especially for financial investigation. If it is alleged that somebody has amassed a lot of wealth, one thing that goes to mind is that there might have been money which have been going through the bank account.
Yeah.
And the only way to obtain information from the bank is obtaining warrants to investigate the account. And it is after getting that information that you can now analyze and be able to ask the person where that money came from. And this is what EFCC was basically doing. It had not. I think the information going out there is that EFCC had seized the property of Dr. Kidero.
So
we had not seized any property. We were in the process of investigation.
So you were still allowed to continue transacting on the accounts?
In other situations where there is evidence, we have preliminary established that these monies are illegally obtained, we apply for order to freeze the account.
But I see that this is also a likelihood that the EFCC could use that stick a lot often than not, where you come in and you say we preliminarily believe that what's on this account was irregularly acquired and therefore freeze. And thereby, as you're continuing your investigations, which have no timeline, you're basically affecting somebody's livelihood. So this person is not able to access their money in their account. They is not able to transact with this money, and EACC can take 10 years investigating this particular matter. What's the recourse for that?
Well, as I said, EACC only files for freezing of the order when at preliminary stage it is satisfied that this money has been illegally obtained. It is not a situation whereby EACC just goes to court and applies just because it is undertaking investigation and applies to these accounts. It rarely do that. There are so many applications we have done, and persons have been operating their bank account. And in fact, for many instances, it is only in those situations whereby EACC has, on a preliminary basis, considering information that it has received and other evidence that is in its possession, that it is able to say these monies should be processed.
I hear that. What I'm just wondering is that this is EACC considering and believing, but I don't have to agree, and maybe I don't agree, and maybe even if we go to court, you will not be able to prove, or may be able to actually show that what you thought you were right on, what you are actually wrong. In the meantime, my life is impacted.
Maybe I could give some light there.
Yes.
Under Section 56 of AFECA and the Corruption and Economic Crime Act, EACC is allowed under the law to file for a preservation order.
Okay.
And that preservation order is supposed to last for 6 months. And this is obtained through the High Court.
Okay.
If any party is dissatisfied with the High Court order, the party can go to court upon being served with the order to set aside the preservation order.
Okay.
And so you can see there is unfairness. The party has the opportunity to argue in court, and the EACC also has the opportunity to demonstrate why those funds should be held. And this has been happening more often, where we feel that funds or property should be preserved. So the party is not denied. It is not EACC. It is EACC moving the court and satisfying the court that there are good grounds or reasonable grounds for preservation of these assets. So you can see there is fairness. It is not about EACC going to court and filing an application and undertaking investigation for as long as it wants. I hope I'm clear on that.
Yes, now that's very clear. Now with this new kind of jurisprudence that the EACC is seeing, things are going your way in court. Are things also going the same way in terms of speeding up your investigations and taking the files to the DPP, or also taking the cases to court?
Oh yes. Therefore, now that the issue of COVID has come in, and things are a bit slow, but the investigations are still ongoing, and there are matters which are being sent to the office of the DPP. So it's a process, because the DPP has to be satisfied that we have obtained sufficient evidence to charge parties.
All right, with all of these things taken into consideration and how the fight against graft has been, I mean, this one case being as one that could, shine the light on this, do you think that you could then have a trail of successes in terms of how the EACC has been able to fight graft?
Well, in terms of asset recovery, I would say that EACC has done a lot. And I would say that since 2014, EACC has recovered assets over 13.2 billion. And some of the assets include 1,800 acres of mandro land at Naivasha. We have the University of Nairobi property, which was recovered recently, which has been in court for a very long time. And we also have railway land in Kisumu, which have always been highlighted in the first phase. A chunk of land which has been grabbed by persons. And the courts in Kisumu have ruled that land be returned to Kenya Railways. And even the High Court in Kisumu, by the way, the High Court in Kisumu had been grabbed. And in a
Interesting.
decision, it had been grabbed. And the ACC went to court and it won.
And so
And
do you have,
we-
do you- just looking at how this continues, then you have goodwill to be able to fight corruption. Do you think, looking at coming from as high as the president, to be able to say, all right, this is something that we are going to fight and keep fighting until, we get to a wonderful place of, saying that we've been able to keep corruption at bay. Do you have goodwill as the ACC from the president, as far up as that, to keep fighting corruption?
I think it is in the public domain that the president has come out strongly in talking about fighting corruption. And he has also pledged support not only to the anti-corruption body, but all the bodies that are fighting corruption
Right.
in terms of budgetary support.
Okay.
And the president has come out strongly in that. It is not that what ELC needs is the resources.
And resources here
And-
is money.
And the resources here is money.
Hakuna pesa bwana to. David Cho, Director of Legal Affairs at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, thank you very much for speaking to us, and congratulations on all the gains that you're making in the wheels of justice in terms of fighting corruption in the country. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
And as we
Thank
keep
you.
saying, we just want blood on the streets. All the best, sir.
It is you saying.
Asante. Crack 8:45. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right, there's a little bit of madness on Mombasa Road, and that's just before the Cabanas. Heading then towards General Motors, it'll take you a little bit, but after that, it stretches on easily through then into the CBD. Not much in terms of a hold-up. At least you'll be able to navigate that without too much of drama. On Thika Road, getting into the CBD as well. Outbound, not too much of an issue. Inbound, though, it'll slow you down right around the junction of Kiambu Road, and then at Muthaiga Corner, and then getting to the underpass. At Pangani. But after that, it should be fine. We don't have much in terms of traffic this Tuesday morning. It's a model and it's great. Spice FM KE, in case you see something else that we should know about, tell us and we'll be able to spread the word.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Conversation.
Spice up yourself.
0719-012-600 is the number you can call and join this conversation as we keep talking about what's happening in the country. In the next hour, we look at two countries that have eradicated COVID-19. This is New Zealand and Tanzania.
Yes.
And we look at what measures they deployed
Stop.
to combat COVID-19.
Stop.
The head of government of New Zealand has declared that New Zealand
It's
is COVID-19
COVID-free.
free.
Thank you. That is a fair statement.
The head of government of Tanzania has declared that Tanzania is COVID-19 free.
Thank,
So we look at what the two governments have done
thank you.
to fight COVID-19. What?
You know, China declared that they were COVID free.
Kidogo.
Punde had not become Punde.
And they started reopening.
And then they started reclosing. They realized this thing isn't quite...
It can be the way...
You may have it under control.
Yeah.
But a viral attack, something that inhabits the body of a human being, what you may have is a situation where people aren't being hospitalized, people aren't dying from it, but to say that you have eradicated it, I would ask for evidence to show how it is you've eradicated and how sure you are that you have eradicated it.
All right. We'll look at that in detail in the next hour. In the meantime, let's reflect a conversation that happened over this weekend on Sunday on KTN, K24's show, The Punchline. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, appeared. And the show is hosted by Ann Kiguta, and she asked him a question. And they were talking about...
You make it sound like he dropped down from heaven. He appeared. Okay, carry on.
Okay. He went.
Eric, please continue. You don't have to pander to naysayers, even if we're with them in the same room. Please carry on.
So therefore, moving on swiftly.
Yes.
Conversation was around, the fight against corruption and the DPP's work, in fighting corruption. And just the same thing that the DPP told us when he was here. He was saying that in our quest to fight against corruption, we are being strategic. It's the same thing that EACC has said, DPP has said. They're working together, and they're saying we pick on specific cases that have high impact, and we go for them. And the issue went into the issue of the Aurora and Kimorer dams, and whether there is any political play here. And it veered into, are you attacking the Deputy President's office, or are you going after the Deputy President's office? And the DPP wondered, where has that come from? Aurora and Kimorer. And he was like, Aurora and Kimorer, that has nothing to do with the DP. This is about Aurora and Kimorer Dam. And this is the investigation that was going. Anyway, just listen to what the DPP said.
Picking on cases that touch on the office of the Deputy President or his close allies in terms of...
Which office of the Deputy President? Be specific.
The Deputy President himself, the Aurora and Kimorer cases.
I mean, be fair, Treasury has always been perceived to be under the President himself.
Trending topic
Rotich was appointed by the President. As far as I'm concerned,
yesterday,
he was not the Deputy President's ally. He was brought there by the President.
This tweet was trying to show, the people who were tweeting were saying, clearly the DP has finally been exonerated of this matter. And looking at them, you just look at them and you wonder, so where's the connection between this conversation and exoneration of the DP? And it kept going there, and you're wondering, what's the connection?
I think there was a lot of...
couldn't find the connection. Can you find a connection?
Right. On social media, there was a lot of hallelujah saying that, finally then he has been exonerated, from this whole dam saga. But unfortunately, in this case, whatever the DPP said was then taken out of context to show to that. He did not, for one moment, even talk about guilt. He did not talk about any kind of implication. He did not mention anything like that. And I think he was very clear in what he was saying here is that, look, in answer to the question, he said very clearly, we're not going against any political big fish. We're not personalizing this thing.
Yes.
We're talking about a national project that went bad. We are talking about loans that should have been used for one thing, which unfortunately were used for something else. And that is the investigation that we're essentially carrying out. So now when you enter in an individual into this, that's not what we are dealing with. probably may have gone on to say further, look, in the course of our investigation, which we know it is an investigation, if names come up, then we'll deal with them at that point. But what we're talking about right now is a national project that went bad. That is what we're looking into. So for everybody to jump in some kind of desperate move to now exonerate somebody or to remove the taint from somebody's name that may have been linked to this, then yes, actually that's it. I think it's a bit desperate to go to those lengths and talk about exoneration and saying finally this, that or the other thing, when the man didn't even mention anything to do with this at all.
Was the DP linked to this particular scandal?
Oh, his name came up, no? And
How?
I think he said a couple of things that would have
The only way
given
the
rise...
DP's name actually came up was when he was coming to
He
talk
himself,
about it.
yes.
When he came and said, I think we are blowing this issue out of the water for no reason. Right?
No pun intended.
It wasn't this amount.
It was this amount.
Was only
this amount.
And
that was it. The DP has not been investigated. At least
he's not
publicly,
being charged.
He hasn't been
also,
charged.
It's not a case.
But also remember,
but the tag
was there. But people who are alleged or are known to be allied to the DP, like Murkomen, also had something to say about this particular matter. And then some. Okay. Now, unfortunately, it follows against a backdrop of many accusations that had been levied against the deputy president. So this appeared like just one more.
One of the many.
Yes. But as you correctly put it, any case against the deputy president has not arisen.
No, it's not even a case.
This has been an issue that probably has been in social media more than anywhere else. Yes. But what had the deputy president not commented on this particular matter? One would have been hard pressed to find where his name would appear, because this case, the two individuals who featured prominently were Dr. Thuge and Rotich. The ones who featured.
It's very interesting that you say that, because even from the office of the DPP, they never mentioned his name. His name never came up. He entered himself into the conversation by talking about the amounts. He is the one who brought himself into this conversation in the first place.
Looking at it
and the people now followed and now started supporting or denying as to whatever else he said. Because if you want to trace back in the detail, nobody talked about him. He spoke about himself.
So why is it then that a few people who appear choreographed would appear to bring this conversation back again and tie the name DP into it?
Remember,
is it bringing the DP into the headlines? Is it trying to remind us that the DP had been mentioned in this particular matter? Why is it?
I think it's trying to give a clean...
Whose strategy are we seeing here?
Is
it the strategy of the Ruto camp, or is it the strategy of the anti-Ruto camp?
For sure.
That sponsored these tweets?
It could, well, look, somebody cooked something, that's for sure. And I think it's trying to give a clean whistle image again to the DP, to exonerate him of something for which he's not even been charged. How do you exonerate somebody whose name has not even been brought into the service in the first place?
These names may be associated with the deputy president, and he himself may not even know these people. Please, in a situation such as the one that we have, there is no better forum for advertising your available services than by trying to put yourself as a great defender of an individual who you think
requires your defense.
Yes, or might be useful to you. So you present yourself as the defender of this particular person, and they themselves may not even have asked for your assistance.
He may not even be aware that...
He may not even be aware that you exist. I mean, how many groups have we seen in social media and elsewhere calling themselves group for defending the deputy president for this? Those urging... groups are springing up all over the landscape in defense of the deputy president for one thing or the other. So when this matter came up during that TV show, it was yet another opportunity for people who want to show that they are on the side of the deputy president to put their best foot forward.
And that they can be effective.
Yes.
Like, look at the number of tweets that we put out.
Yes.
Look at the number of impressions that we got. Look
and
at the
how
conversation.
Can we get people to have a
we were
conversation
trending
around this?
for so long. We can get you to
in
trend.
defense of the deputy president.
But I think it was really then taken out of context, because if you want to go back to the question that he was asked, and what did he answer to? Did they go after this? Did they go after this investigation because of politics? And it was no. We did not. The investigation had nothing to do with his office in terms of politics. It had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with a national project. And I think in fact, if anything could be so far removed from context, I think this is one example of that. It is this one. So far from context that it actually hurts when you think about it. That you sit and you wonder, how did we arrive at this conclusion from what the DPP actually said?
You know, what Siti has said actually has got me thinking. It is possible that a few people just looked at it and they saw an opportunity and they jumped onto that opportunity from either side. It could be a side that's trying to get the attention of the DP to show that, we can get you trending for 24 hours. It could be another side that's not, that's against the DP to try to show, we can basically take any bit of conversation and twist it and make it trend for 24 hours. Same way when we saw the DP going to donate foodstuff in Kikuyu constituency, and the following day we are hearing people complaining that the food that they've eaten was contaminated.
How do you know what they had eaten before they even received that
And
food?
then you start hearing stories of there was a pickup that came distributing similar looking food, and you don't know exactly who is it that came to give the food. And you start asking yourself, so the person who came to give the food, what was this person trying to support the DP? Was this person trying to bring down the DP? What's the agenda? Is the DP even aware? Okay, even if it's your enemies of the DP, is this really sanctioned from higher ups? One of those silly political, it's a silly season, and this is just calling out, it's a silly season. Whenever you see this kind of tweets, whenever you see this kind of conversations, like CT keeps telling us, pause and ask yourself a question.
Because
don't just take everything on face value.
Something of that sort provides a wonderful opportunity for you to advertise your services. In some cases, it provides a wonderful opportunity for you to bargain. For instance, when you find someone seems to be extremely critical about a situation, it has often no bearing on the reality that this is someone who's just pointing out something that ought to be pointed out. No, they're pointing out that they exist. They're pointing out that they have a perspective that could be used for other means. This is Kenya, and every time something of this sort hits the headlines, again, pause.
And ask yourself,
what actually is going on here? Because it will be an issue today, maybe tomorrow. Will it be an issue on Thursday? Chances are no.
Of course not.
Yes.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock.
Today's another stellar day as far as traffic is concerned. It's not much we see except for what's happening right around the Muthaiga roundabout this morning. That's an absolute mess, and that's for sure. You need to approach with caution and be very careful. All right, North Airport Road also is bumper to bumper, then trying to connect with the Eastern Bypass and Mombasa Road as it is right about 9 o'clock. It looks like this is going to be the issue for some time now. Mombasa Road is clogged, so is Thika Road. Everything in between, though, seems to be flowing quite smoothly. Spice FMKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. In about a half hour or so, we'll see what the situation looks like. Things should have died down by then, and you should be able to get away, or rather get about easier. Spice FMKE, that's how you can get in touch.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Tuliomba siku 3. Corona imekwisha. Nilikuwa napata taarifa za waziri wa afya juzi, anasema Dar es Salaam palikuwa na wagonjwa 4. Lakini uzushi utatolewa wa kila aina. Ninyi hapa ndugu zangu walimu, siwaoni waliovaa manini yale yanaitwa yanavaa kimdomoni. Barakoa au hakuna. Hata leo tunaonana tu hapa kawaida. Ndio maana nilikuwa na mshangazi siku nyingine speaker akiwa bungeni yuko kiti chake peke yake, lakini amelivaa hilo libarakoa mdomoni. Ndugu zangu wa Tanzania, tumtangulize Mungu. Na nitoe wito kwa viongozi mbalimbali, kwa sababu njia nyingine ambayo inaweza ikatumika ni ya kuletewa vifaa vya corona vyenye corona.
Tuliomba siku 3.
Watu watakuja kuambia mvae.
That seems to be the thing, isn't it? That's the antidote.
Na ndugu zangu wa Tanzania,
that this is what worked in Tanzania, and they've been.
The health minister says there were a few more patients left in Dar es Salaam in hospital, and now they've been discharged. We are done.
COVID-free in Tanzania, just, neighbors to Kenya here, that has happened. And, you must ask yourself then, what is the country of Kenya not doing? Or what are others in the world not doing that could actually get this sorted out? Right? We saw some time about a month ago, in terms of the official numbers, Tanzania was at 509, did not go a case above 509. There was a little bit of a tiff at the borders between, neighboring countries, with truck drivers and the like. And I think now the president then resolved to prayer together with the citizens of the country. And a few days later have been able to announce Tanzania as COVID-free.
Yes, and yet the drivers who come from Tanzania
are still testing positive.
Yes, not only that, but countries that border Tanzania are not allowing those drivers to come into their country. Yes. There's arrangements being made by countries like Rwanda and even Burundi. You stop at the border, you vacate the lorry, it's fumigated, somebody from that country, and it's an arrangement, but you are not.
You're not entering the
you
country.
are not. You are not. So they may believe that they're COVID-free. Their neighbors don't believe this. But even more importantly, there's a publication called The Humanitarian. They have been speaking to health workers and doctors within Tanzania and the areas of Dar es Salaam. And the report that they're receiving is completely different. The only problem is that these are people who've given information and have desired to be anonymous. So you cannot quote and say this is the case. Now, if we were to take a case, say, for instance, of our own country, for the longest time, I'll give an example of Kisumu County. Kisumu County had no cases of COVID.
Yep.
As of yesterday, they had 11.
Yep.
And I was speaking to a health worker in that region, and they said part of the problem that they've had emanates from 3 sources. They say truck drivers, people who've come and brought bodies to be buried for funerals.
Yep.
All right.
From Nairobi.
From Nairobi.
And Mombasa.
Yes. And then the interaction of people who live in some of the border areas within that particular region who've come into Kisumu. You see? So, 11. But also, they have increased their testing.
Yep.
So now they're at 11, whereas they had been at 0 for the longest time. Now, if we were to ask the honest question in Kenya, how many counties have actually had regular testing? And when they were testing, how many people have they actually tested? In many counties, not very much in terms of testing has actually taken place.
True.
And so they would tell you they have none. Yet, the correct response is, so far, of those we have tested, we have not found any who are positive. Or if you haven't tested, so we actually do not know.
We do not know.
So if we hear, the president may have declared, but remember the president's position from the very beginning was not dissimilar from the position that Sweden took, was not dissimilar from the position Mexico took, was not dissimilar from the position Brazil took. Now, look at those countries with the position that they had taken and where they are at now with the numbers of infections in their countries.
So infections could be going up in Tanzania.
They could.
But I think also what the president is saying is that we are not seeing critical cases that require care in our hospitals.
No. What he's saying is that there's no COVID in Tanzania. He's not talking about critical cases, those who might be asymptomatic. No. He's saying that Tanzania is COVID-free. And he didn't mince his words by saying this. And in this case, if you ask me what's going on here, it's mind over matter. Look, we have other things to do. He even spoke a couple of weeks ago and said, look at those ones who closed the economy without having the right information. No. Look at them now. They want to open and they have more cases. Yeah. We prayed. We did the bare minimum. I told my people what they needed to do. And now we don't have any problems. And we're doing fine. All of you people who are saying there's no difference between Tanzania, us and them
health-wise.
Exactly.
The only difference is economy-wise.
Right.
They don't have food, and we have grown food. And we're going to sell it at a premium.
Yes, and that's exactly what they're doing. So now in this case, all of you people who are talking about border town infections, this, that, the other thing, that's your problem. As far as I'm concerned, we're moving forward.
Those guys are done.
We've prayed.
We're done.
Our minds is telling us something else. The world can continue on this COVID tip. We've brought herbs from Madagascar. We're going to deal with those. For now, COVID is a thing of the past.
And in fact, she's contemptuously fighting that whole notion of wearing masks.
Take it to your wife and your children in the house. Is that not what he said? Go and wear it at home. But we're done here. Let's move on. Let's talk about
He's basically saying, if anybody comes to give you a mask, tell them to go wear it with his wife and children. Do not trust these masks that are coming. They could be the ones that are bringing you COVID.
You see, the issue of this herd immunity, if we take a look at Sweden, there were deaths. But if you look at where the deaths were, you see, their system is more or less devolved like ours. The health system. So it isn't as though there's a uniform government policy which was applied right across. But many of the deaths were among the elderly, who would have required some protection and some specific care.
Yeah.
But it isn't as though they themselves were overwhelmed. They report that they still had a 20% capacity that had not been occupied. All right? Germany has had cases, but remember, Germany is now offering other European countries and saying, look, given the ICU facilities that we have in this country, if you're overwhelmed, we have space. Please come, bring your people so that they can actually find care. Okay? Now, the problem with COVID is if you are not prepared. Professor Ansala told us something very interesting, that people are taking credit for the low numbers without understanding that there was mitigation. That's why you have low numbers. It may not have been announced or shouted about, but there was mitigation. There is talk now that the courts may open. I don't think there's anything wrong with the courts opening, but if you do not take adequate precaution, then you will have a problem that you didn't need to have had in the first place. You see, the moment you have large numbers of people being infected, that is when the strain on your healthcare system comes into being. And many of the countries in the West, remember, one of the things that they have said, even if you test positive, but you're not feeling unwell, please don't even come to hospital. If you're feeling just slightly unwell, don't even call. Stay at home, do A, B, C, D. Not this complicated things that I'm hearing that you need, God knows how many gloves you need. Home care is simplified. But when you feel you are in a critical condition, this is what you'll feel, then call us. But to try and make the situation more complicated than it is, or to try and deny that it actually exists, you're in the same boat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a serious problem. What do we look at today? Look now, I don't think that looking at other countries like Mexico and such, that they said that we don't have this thing at all. It just meant that for some time they really didn't do anything about it, and then we have 4,000 cases in about 6 hours having been tested, and then of course now if you want to apply that to the ratio of those who are dying, now a problem on their hands that they're probably not going to be able to catch up with really quickly. And I really hope that this does not happen in Tanzania, because it'll be a mess. There's ignoring an issue, hoping that it'll go away, but I don't think COVID is going to fall into that category here.
It won't.
It's not going to disappear by virtue of the fact that you just deny its presence, and it is clear, it is obvious. I mean, we had somebody here who talked about Tanzania and the borders being an issue for Kenya in terms of infections.
Oh no, they said it a long time ago.
A very long time ago, they were saying it's not even within the borders of Kenya that's our issue.
Our problem
is the border with Tanzania, and that's what we're looking at, about cases coming in from Tanzania. And I dare say that it's a bit reckless even now of the president of Tanzania to speak in the manner in which he's speaking. You can't ignore away something like this.
You see, if Uganda told you that they have cases or they have the whole thing under control, I would agree.
So would I.
If Rwanda said they had it under control, I would agree. Because they took the mitigation measures they took were serious. And they closed their borders. Simple. Let's contain it. Again, Dr. Anzala, who's a virologist, explained to us, you need to understand containment and the stages that we use. The moment you have an infection, you don't want it to spread. Hence containment. And you want to deal with it, so it is here and we're dealing with it here. Again, isolation. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, Tanzania is not doing anything. It's not containing. It's not isolating. It's a free-for-all.
We don't even know whether they're collecting data. Are they testing?
When you're in that level of denial, collecting data would be admitting that it exists, wouldn't it?
They refused to give collated results to the world body that was collecting from every other nation on the planet. And they stopped at a certain number and said, you know what, that's great for you guys, but we're not even doing this anymore. We're not even going to feed into that global index. We're not doing that anymore. So you can imagine somebody who doesn't want to even offer that information to know what the rest of the world is dealing with.
Yeah.
Then you say, okay, clearly, this is wishing away a problem that is clearly not going to come true. This wish is not going to come true. And I shudder to think of what the reality will be in a couple of weeks when the information starts to seep out. And they're not going to be able to do anything to control it, because it will.
Out of control.
It will. It will.
Unfortunately, the nature of viruses is that it will.
It will.
It will.
Yes, it will.
Let's speak to Ed Getonga, who's calling in from Nyeri. Good morning, Ed.
Hey, morning, Eric.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you. Now, I want to, this corona thing, and as far as how Magufuli is handling it.
Yep.
For lack of a better word, and I don't mean any disrespect, I mean he's been handling it in a weird way. Because honestly speaking, yesterday, 2 days ago, he's been saying that there is no corona in the country. Yet yesterday I was watching a video actually with the anonymous guys, and members of the press are being squeezed up not to talk. And the funny thing is, you remember there was a time way back when he was accusing, actually the health minister was accusing Kenyan drivers of being the ones who have contracted the virus. Yet
and taking it across the border.
Yes, yet in reality, they were just trying to mask the situation in the country. And I think, in a way, Magufuli is just trying to create some PR, but at the cost of lives of people. Which I think, in a way, it's wrong. Although, in the real sense, even Tanzanians themselves, they're being the blind people who are being led by one blind person, and they just want to be led. Because you cannot tell me that they have to wait for the government to say that coronavirus is there, or corona cases are there. They don't have to wait for the government to confirm. Yet, you can't tell me that there are no residences, or there are no residents who have coronavirus and they've finished with their eyes. So in a way, I think, I don't know, if maybe they need to have a revolution in Tanzania or something, but in a way, before they realize, it's going to be too late for them.
And it's going to affect them. Ed, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your call, and thank you for your contribution this morning.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one. 0719-012-600. Let's take a look at the weather, and then this conversation continues What do you make of what President Magufuli has said? He says, Tanzania, as far as we are concerned, we are corona-free. I'm going to play you out of this break what the Prime Minister of New Zealand has said. And then we compare the two. Good morning, 17 minutes after 9.
All right, partly cloudy conditions only in Nairobi. This is going to change later on with expected rains, highs of 23. And then taking a look into Nyeri, where at 17 degrees it's mostly cloudy and it's going to be a wet afternoon with highs of 22. Mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 17. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 23. In Eldoret, it'll be a thunderstorm afternoon, highs of 20 and lows of 12. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 23 degrees. That'll change later with highs of 27 and lows of 19. It'll be a rainy afternoon. Thunderstorms are going to be the order of the afternoon in Kakamega, currently at 20 degrees and mostly cloudy. Mombasa at 26 degrees, partly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 24. 26 degrees and partly cloudy in Malindi with highs of 29 today. It's mostly cloudy in Kampala with rains promised for the afternoon, highs of 24 and lows of 19. Mostly sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam. It'll be a showery afternoon with highs of 29 and lows of 22. All right, taking a look into Johannesburg, where it's mostly sunny at 7 degrees. We'll see highs of 18 and lows of 4. Lagos, light thunderstorms being experienced at 24 degrees, going into a wet evening and a wet morning with highs of 31 and lows of 24. Okay, let's wrap it up in Europe, where cloudy conditions prevail in Paris at 12 degrees. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 10. London is mostly sunny at 12 degrees with highs of 19 as well. And we'll finish things up in the States, in New York, where it'll be a warm day, highs of 32 and lows of 20.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Today there are no active cases in New Zealand. We have tested almost 40,000 people for COVID-19 in the past 17 days and none have tested positive.
Is the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
We had no one in hospital for COVID-19 for 12 days.
Basically,
it's been 40 days since the last case of community transmission.
We have tested and we haven't come up with any new case of COVID-19 over the last 40 days. Over 400 tests done. How many? Over 40,000 rather tests done. None of them has given us a positive result. And the people who are undergoing treatment have all come out of isolation or hospital. So this is it. And we have had no infection in the community. Nothing has been reported. Nothing has been reported. And we have the tests that we have done. Now, you see, that's giving information on details. Opening statement, we don't have any active. Okay. So, if someone gives that sort of information, you say, okay.
You're able to now trace it back because she is giving information based on data that they've been able to collect. It's not based on creed. It's not based on emotion. It's not based on inference. It's not based on wishes. It's based on facts. We don't have anyone in hospital. Our last person was discharged on such and such a date. We've done so many more tests throughout the community, and we found that they all come out to be negative. We have done over this number of tests over this period of time. So based on that data that we've been able to collect, we can then now go and make this decision based on that. Do we see the difference?
There's a difference. In both cases, the countries are reopening.
Tanzania never shut.
Well, they had stopped some things. For example, now the Football League is coming back this weekend. They had reduced some things. Schools are still closed. They haven't reopened schools. So,
the economy, what did they shut down?
They had shut down bars, nightclubs. Those ones are still closed. So there's aspects of the economy that are still closed, and they are reopening gradually, graduated.
You know, this is a bit of a contradiction here. Because if...
There's what the government is saying, and there's what the government is not saying.
Yes.
By what it's doing.
The government seems to have admitted that there was corona, but after 3 days of prayers...
They sorted it.
Yes.
It's a miracle.
The government knowing how to deal with its people. You know, you'll not be able to get this. What's the population of Tanzania?
We'll find out in a minute.
Are you going to be able to have enough test kits?
They're actually more
will you
than
have?
us.
Will you have? Yeah, they are more. They're almost double. Will you have the capacity to test? You will not. So just look at it and say, will you be able to feed the people if you told them to stay indoors? You will not. So the government just decides how to deal with these people. Daniel in Kisumu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
We are well.
Good morning.
Now, the two clips that you have played, the contrast is like day and night. One is telling us something that's based on a very specific science.
Yep.
The other one is basically being defiant. And look, somebody has said that I have a friend from Tanzania, and we're a member of a network, and this day he wrote for us something, comparing the model that Tanzania is using with a Swedish model.
Yeah.
In dealing with COVID-19. And you see, the problem a lot of people in Tanzania feel like East Africans are bashing them for no apparent reason, for choosing a different path. But you see, when you say what the Swedish have done, or what the guys in New Zealand have done, they've always had their numbers. So they say, okay, we are doing this, but this is what our numbers say. Who even knows the numbers in Tanzania? The last time the United Republic of Tanzania released official statistics was 29th April. So if they're telling us, so like yesterday, was it on Sunday or on Saturday, you said that 4 people were in hospital in Dar es Salaam and they recovered. Those were 4 out of how many?
Yep.
What about the others? How many have been in hospital over the last 30 days? These guys in New Zealand are telling you that in the last 40 days, we have not had a case. Can Tanzania confidently tell us? And that's when they get to a point. They're not even saying that tumeshinda, that there is no more corona. They're saying we are relaxing this to level 1. I mean, in Kenya, I know in South Africa, their COVID-19 restrictions were in levels. They started from level 7. I think right now it's dropped to level 3.
Yeah.
I think that's the same sort of model that we are not using these levels in Kenya, or are we?
We don't have levels in Kenya.
Yes. But now, these guys, you see, like they're not even saying New Zealand now if we are free or we are at no risk. They're just saying we have reduced it to level 1. Yeah. It means there's still some level of caution that's being taken.
And
when our whole president tells
surveillance.
Yes, when a whole president tells you that when somebody brings you masks, tell them to go and wear them with his wife and children. I mean, that's unnecessary defiance. And you see, like you said before, I live in Kisumu. We didn't have COVID-19 cases until people were asking, Kwani, what's special about Kisumu? Yeah? Then we started having the cases, and then they started rising. How did they get here? People coming from other places to Kisumu for funerals, people sneaking in, bribing people, cops across the roadblocks and getting to Kisumu from other cities. And now we are also having now it's become a serious public health risk in Kisumu. You can't go to town and just feel comfortable going around your business as usual.
Yeah. And
being East Africa being what it is right now, even if let's take Magufuli's word for it, which will be really stupid to do, but let's take his word for it. If indeed this guy is president, it worked. What makes them so sure that they can't get it from Kenya? Because Kenya, we're still having high infections. What makes it what makes them so sure that they can't get it from Uganda, where they are having about 640-something cases right now? What makes them so sure that they can't get it from Zambia?
Good questions. All those,
I think
those guys have closed the borders. Kenya has closed the border. Zambia has closed the border.
Uganda.
So they'll not get it.
The borders are not closed. I mean, we're still having movement of truck drivers between the countries.
Indeed,
how much of our border with between our border and with Tanzania is porous? Look at the coast. Look right here in Migori, Sebania area, Kuria area.
Yeah, villagers visit one another. You can just cross.
Yeah, you can't possibly say that Tanzania is at a point where even if they were COVID free, as per their word, we can't say that they're at a point where they can't get new infections or anything. But the biggest point is what the direction that Tanzania is taking with this thing is going to be the biggest threat towards the other East African nations containing this virus within their own borders.
Thank you, Daniel. That's a point. That's the bottom line. Thank you very much, Daniel. Zachary in Nakuru.
Oh, hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I have kept waiting, but it's okay. That guy has got very good points.
Right. Paul Esana. So what's your point?
I'm very sure that all of you have heard the word Holocaust deniers. I just called it to describe Mr. You call him Magufuli.
Yes.
That's his name.
That's his name.
That's exactly what our brother is. Now, and let me tell you, if I were near him or if I were his neighbor, I would tell him it is very, very likely that he himself will come down with that disease. And I think what our president and the neighbor, all those presidents of the neighbor Tanzania should do is actually to up their game. Let them deploy military. We are in a state of war, Mr. Eric, if you don't know.
So deploy military where?
Along the borders.
Okay.
Even if it means that those guys are bringing their potatoes here, we shall tell them, okay, let us eat leaves, wild leaves, but stay with your potatoes. The ones that you are saying that you are going to sell at us at a premium, price, because this is a very serious case. Actually, I repeat the words of that guy who has said that someone should not come from some status, you know?
True.
Like you, Eric, now you hear your voice, you call yourself the provocateur, is it? Something like that, Why were you given that role? It is because even your tone, your command actually shuts everyone down. Therefore, Mr. President, when he is talking of such that is bad.
That is wrong. Zachary,
it
thank
is wrong.
you. Thank you. Let me take Alex, who's been holding on the line as well. Alex, good morning. Alex in Kayole. All right, I think Alex has just put his phone down to attend to something else. But what the two gentlemen have basically said, Daniel in Kisumu and Zachary in Nakuru, they're saying this is going to be a big threat.
You know, the Zachary suggestion that you should put the army on the border, does you know how long the border of Kenya, Tanzania is?
Do you know how many officers we have?
Yes.
In our barracks?
I have a very clear idea of how many officers we have.
They're not enough?
My friend, those borders are as porous as anything you can imagine. But it's 700 and something like 68 kilometers.
Yeah.
Okay, of
it's
border.
a long borderline.
There are so many places where people aren't even aware they're in Tanzania or they're in Kenya.
In Kenya.
They share a market, they share health centers. So when you tell them you're in another place, they say, really? So at what point? All I'm saying is that some of these things are, as we say, unfortunate. I'm sure the leadership in Tanzania have a reason why they've taken this particular position that they have, but they will rue the day they took this position, because COVID isn't a figment of someone's imagination, it's a reality. And the sooner one accepts that it is actually a reality, and the sooner you accept that it's something that needs to be dealt with seriously, the sooner you'll actually find a solution, and the sooner you can actually return to normalcy. Countries that have taken it seriously have gotten to a point where at least now they have some balance.
Right.
Okay? Countries that have ignored it and have assumed that this thing is some flight of fancy or it's some passing cloud have gone to regret it seriously. Yes. I mean, you can explain it as much as you like, but it's a reality.
It's here.
Let's take a break. Take a look at traffic. The conversation continues. 0719-012-600. The president of Tanzania has said that there's no more COVID in Tanzania. The Prime Minister of New Zealand has said there's no more COVID in New Zealand. At least no new cases of COVID in New Zealand in the last 40 days of a lot of testing. Still, like half the number of our tests they've done in the last 40 days and gotten zero. What do you think of those two leaders? It's 28 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's looking much better on most of the roads this morning as you were trying to get into the CBD or out of it for that matter. Mombasa Road and Thika Road were causing some problems, but this seems to have been opened up by now. So you shouldn't have any problems where you're going. Getting into the CBD from other parts, coming out of Westlands, Ngong Road or Langata Road, getting to roundabouts and into the city looks absolutely fine now. Out of traffic hour this Tuesday morning. And it shouldn't build up again until evening when everybody goes back home. But for now, it looks really good, guys. And I'll keep you abreast of what's going on, but for now you should be able to get where you're going without any problems whatsoever.
27 to 10. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. 0719-012-600. What do you think the leaders of East Africa, the rest of the countries, should do with this? Because this is clearly Tanzania's way of either herd immunity. It even goes beyond herd immunity. They're not saying that we are dealing with herd immunity and
like herd denial.
They're basically just denying. They're saying, there's no more COVID in this country. We are not focusing on this. We are going about our business. I'm allowing the league to resume. We are discussing the resumption of schools. We are moving on back to life as normal. No COVID in our country. Whereas when we look at the neighbor, Rwanda is still imposing those measures and still saying, in fact, the border towns, the towns that are bordering DRC, that region, the districts there, are on lockdown because of the truck drivers coming in and bringing in the cases, or people even crossing across the borders. And they're still doing a lot of the containment measures in the other big cities and towns of Rwanda. Uganda, same. Kenya, same.
You know, this particular pandemic is often compared to the Spanish flu.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the Spanish flu and why it claimed so many lives was because people didn't know. You know, it was like people seemed to be falling sick, but they're not really sure what this thing was. But when many people started dying, or rather, should I say, when people started dying in large numbers, that's when you take news and say, wait, something doesn't seem to be right here.
Right here.
And the symptoms seem to be the same. They didn't know. Now, you have a situation where we do know. And yet, you are behaving, or the behavior that is being exhibited amounts to someone who actually doesn't know, because you are conducting your business as though it doesn't exist and there's nothing wrong. The consequences will be the same. A lot of people will suffer.
Yeah, this is the thing, you know. It's because we want to look at it as maybe like territorial muscle being pulled, or state sovereignty then not being adhered to or respected. But look, people are going to die, unfortunately. You're going to have a large number of people having been infected with this because of the fact that someone chooses to deny. And because of his denying this, a lot of people are going to fall in line by virtue of the fact that they're scared they may lose their jobs. If you want to look at it as it is, very clearly. You will toe the presidential line because this is an edict that he has given. This is something that he has said. And so because you want to protect yourself, this is the narrative that you're also going to go with. Unfortunately, people are going to be affected. People are infected now. Look at countries whereby testing is going on massively. You still have a large number of the population having been infected who haven't even been tested. We know that for a fact. We talked about it here in Nairobi, for example. There are people now here in the capital city of Kenya who have COVID.
They don't know about it.
They don't know. We don't know because they have not been tested. Right? And there is the knowledge that this needs to happen. There is the knowledge that testing needs to happen so that you have an information footprint then of what you're able to do. How much worse then in a situation whereby we choose to deny it completely? How bad could it then get? How bad could it then get? People will get sick. Children will get sick. The vulnerable community in a population will get sick. What happens then? Kenya, we already know that there's a possibility of 9 different strains of COVID in Kenya already. How much more for where it's not being studied, information is not being applied, measures are not being put in place, but we're just going to deny it and hope that it goes away. It's too much of an issue to be ignored because there's so many other connecting tissues around this issue. Unfortunately, it can't be. So should neighboring countries have a say in this? Absolutely. Because not just about how you could affect us, but what about the populations within your country that could suffer greatly from this ignorance? That's the problem here.
Yep. And let's go back to the phone lines. Daniel in Kisumu. This should be a different Daniel.
Yes.
Daniel, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you? So we spoke to a different Daniel earlier, right?
Yes, this is another Daniel.
Yeah. Daniel in Kisumu.
Yes.
Namna gani?
First of all, great for me, City Muga. Long time, my friend.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Asante.
Yes. Yeah, so I wanted to contribute on this topic on how Magufuli is handling all these issues.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I'm just trying to imagine the situation of health workers in Tanzania dealing with something that is perceived not to be, and how advocacy in Tanzania can be.
Mm-hmm.
How it can receive that rebellion. Whenever I hear the Magufuli talking, I'm just always imagining of this leader called Kinjekitile Ngwale during Majima rebellion, who believed that bullet can be demystified to be water.
Yeah.
So you see the way Tanzania is dealing with this. I don't know whether the communist states always do follow the suit, because the way he's dealing with this issue is just making this situation to be worse.
What do you think the leaders of the region should do, Daniel?
Yeah, you see, first of all, the leaders of the region, they should sit down. But whenever they sit down, they always do not tell Magufuli on the face. They should tell him outrightly that this thing exists. And I wonder the experts behind Magufuli, the medical experts behind Magufuli, because whatever he's saying, maybe it's just a thought from himself, but not from the medical experts who believe that this thing exists, and the rate of infection in Tanzania cannot be told empirically, because when you see whenever they stop, there's a testing. First of all, they didn't believe that the test kits were valid. Yeah, and again, the way he delivered this message to his people is not something that maybe even Tanzanians can believe that COVID exists.
Yeah.
So we are headed to a direction that the neighboring countries will be more affected than Tanzania
itself. Thank you, Daniel. Dominic Ngangami. Salama kabisa, habari yako Dominic?
Nzuri sana. Sasa nataka tuangalie jinsi ile swala la corona lilivyoingia nchi ya Tanzania.
Dominic, you're very faint today.
Okay.
Hello, Dominic.
Nasema.
Yes.
Jaribu kuangalia ile swala corona lilivyoingia Tanzania. Je, Watanzania walipokeaje kuanzia kwa wasanii mpaka rais mwenyewe na kila mtu na? Ulikuwa ni ujumbe ambao ulienezwa kwa njia yake ya kipekee. So hiyo habari watu wakaipokea, wakaishi nayo kwamba ndio kuna corona, lakini tunaweza tukijaribu kupata mikakati iliyowekwa hii corona, yani ni jambo ambalo ni ugonjwa kama ugonjwa mwingine, lakini tukichukua mikakati ambayo imewekwa tutaukinga. Na ndio njia ambayo Rais Magufuli anaitumia. Sasa mimi sielewi mbona sisi Kenya sasa hivi tuelewa kwamba tunataka tufunguliwe. Kwa nini tuelewe tunataka tufunguliwe ni hali ugonjwa upo? Kwamba yani kuna ile tunataka tuishi nao. Na hivyo ndivyo Tanzania wamefanya. Sasa mimi sioni kosa kwa sababu Magufuli ameona watu wake wako hivi na wako hivi, wanaweza pata masharti, basi wafunguliwe na wazoee kuishi na ugonjwa. Pia Wakenya wenyewe wanalia tufunguliwe. Waona wanalia.
Sawa Dominic, asante sana. Robert in Nakuru.
Thank you. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Okay. Personally, I don't want to appear as if I'm jealous for Tanzania because of appearing that they would take it like so. I'm a man of faith personally.
Right.
I would refer to a man called Nehemiah. He was a governor. What he did in a moment of crisis, yes, he prayed, but the Bible says after praying, they would work with one arm, maybe holding a spade, the other one with a spear.
Okay.
That demonstrates that the same faith that inspired Nehemiah to pray, he also instructed him that it's good to exercise caution. So I believe it is a common ground if you exercise caution. I think the leaders of the states in the other nation, when you try to exercise caution, at least they will reason it is a common ground for them. Yeah.
I get it. Thank you very much. Martin in Kisumu.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Great News City, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, welcome back. I unyieldingly refused to ask Ndu when City was away whether her name is Ndu Ouko or Unko.
Ndu Oko.
Oko.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That is now very right. I think, about Magufuli, I think he's just realizing that he should be coexisting with this disease, as I've said before. Though I also believe that he's taking some precautions.
What precautions?
Like putting on the mask, something like that.
He's fighting masks.
He's fighting masks.
Yep. He says anybody who brings you masks, tell them to basically go ride a mosquito.
Then I think there is something that they have learned, because in Tanzania we also have some good doctors. They have learned something that maybe they are not able to, eradicate this disease. Yeah, because even in Kenya, our has been very melodramatic. Yeah, this ritualistic address on COVID will not definitely flatten the curve. Because, of course, you have seen that we are also testing. We only testing some paltry 2,000 a day, and now Kenya think that they are ahead. They have done something.
We're not doing much better, is what you're saying.
What I'm trying to say is that we may be having very many infected people in the population. Yeah, and what the scientists are not telling us, they should definitely give us the difference, the distinction between Europe and Africa. Because I'm seeing in Kenya, the fatality rate is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
thank you, Martin.
Okay, thank you.
Asante sana. It's a 9:45. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7, 87.9 Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi.
Spice FM.
So the Standard Digital is reporting this morning that Kirinyaga MCAs have spent the night in the county assembly planning Waigoro's impeachment. Some members of the county assembly have spent their night at the assembly as they prepare to debate an impeachment motion against their governor, Anne Waigoro. The MCAs, who claim to be the majority, trooped to the county assembly premises on Monday night as they sharpened their tools to tackle the ouster motion against Waigoro today. There's confusion at the assembly this morning as the pro-Waigoro group insisted that there is a valid court order stopping the impeachment, while her opponents insist that the order had elapsed as the matter was not prosecuted. The pro-impeachment MCAs say they have the support of 24 out of 33 members of the county assembly. Today, it is eating each other.
That was kind of funny.
It is eating each other in the county assembly of Kirinyaga. The governor basically is facing an impeachment and motion, and they claim that they have 24 out of 33. So they have the majority. Mm-hmm. And in the county assembly, it's not a hearing. It's just the person who's moving the motion goes and reads count, put to a vote, they vote.
Majority.
The people who go to start questioning and bringing lawyers is the Senate.
It's the Senate. That's where the trial, as it were.
That's
where it actually happens. That's
Yes.
the court within the four walls of the Senate, right? So I think it's interesting that they decided to spend the night within these quarters, because we've seen evidence, or rather, historically, it has shown that something happens by the time we have consensus, and then everybody goes to their homes, and by the time we come back in the morning, things would have changed, and minds would have changed, directions would have taken a different path, and people's decisions would be something totally different by the time the sun rises the next day. So it's interesting that they chose to do this in this manner, because look, what we resolved at 5 p.m.
motivated,
today.
though. I mean, and this is unlike MCAs. They're highly motivated to ensure that they have the numbers to get her
They
out.
seem to be fairly tired of the governor.
I don't think it has anything to do, honestly, I think that it is more with how they felt as a result of the remarks that she made, as opposed to what they are alleging she has done.
You think so?
Yes.
I think they're pissed off at her response.
Yes.
I think
because it attacked their person. Look at it. It attacked.
None of them is talking about that later.
Of course not. That's not what they're going to put. That's not what they're going to put in the motion. They're not going to put that we feel slighted because of what she said. Of course, they're going to give reason and say this is the reason why we want to remove her. But I think one of the fuel to this is the remarks that she made in terms of do you even know how government runs in the first place? For you to come then and start accusing me of misappropriation of funds or mismanagement of office or this, that, the other thing. Do you even understand how it runs in the first place? My friend, what that does to you in terms of your psyche gives you motivation to remove someone.
What the governor prevents the MCAs from doing.
That's it.
That's usually the bone of contention.
Of course.
Meaning here you are buying cars and doing this, and as you want to go for this trip, which is replete with per diems
and swanky hotels.
We want to go for benchmarking in Thailand.
And then on top of that, you come and tell us that we don't even understand how the operations work in the first place.
I see what you did there, City.
And you decline. And then you give us rude answers.
And then on top of that, you tell us that we don't even understand our job in the first place.
That's it. You are done for.
But also, if you look at the history of impeachments, beyond that, there's usually some external force.
There's some wind.
There's some external, there's some wind that is basically propelling this boat.
And the person who seems to have fingers pointing in their direction is the PS.
For interior.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, MCAs, to sit down like that and they're so, come on. You want to make sure that 24 of us have slept here. We can all see each other. It's holding each other.
Sleep with your eyes open is literal.
Yes. Because they know what happens. What would normally happen is that by morning, some people, say, I'd taken a trip. Oh,
I was a bit tired. I took a pill or two, and so I couldn't wake up.
Can even claim that they were kidnapped at night. Others can claim that they took, just as drink and it had been laced. They can come up with all manner of excuses why they are not here.
Migori County is the one that has some of the most interesting history with regards to that.
Mm.
People just disappear to Tanzania. Which is just next door.
They go abroad.
They go abroad quickly.
I had traveled. I
was out of the country.
So you, if you have energy and you want to look for them in Tanzania, go ahead.
You go ahead.
No problem.
But we are out of the country. Let me tell you what the Mutira MCA, David Kenywa, is alleging against the governor. He accuses Waiguru of gross violation of the Constitution by failing to deliver the annual State of the County address to the County Assembly. The governor has deliberately refused, failed, and or neglected to deliver the same for the financial year 2018-2019, which failure amounts to a gross violation of the Constitution and the County Government Act. But according to Waiguru, there is no requirement for such an address to be made at the County Assembly. Such an address was given to the County Assembly in the first year, in November 2018, and a similar one at the Kerogoya Hospital after the health crisis on September 12th. And the Assembly was duly notified. I don't have to come here to the Assembly. I gave it there in Kerogoya. The governor is also accused of using her office to improperly confer a benefit to herself when she was irregularly paid for travel allowances by the way of interest amounting to 10.6 million shillings, yet she did not travel. The amount was paid to her personal account in the name of Anne Mombi Waiguru, held at Equity Bank. In her response, Waiguru says a casual check of the county government would not indicate that there are such interests existing, that they were surrendered in a normal manner required by the public service regulations. Another one was on the Kirinyaga Investment Development Authority, which was established by the County Assembly. Okay? Whereas the County Public Service Board has directed that KIDA board members should not be paid until their salaries have been approved by the SRC circular, Kenywa claims that Waiguru did not take the said recommendations and has been paying the board outside the IFMIS and county government payroll. She is also accused of violating Sections 46 of the Public Procurement and Disposal Assets Act 2015 by usurping the powers of the accounting officer in establishing an irregular tender evaluation committee composed of the governor's partisan staff, namely Pauline Kamau and Wayne Geshira. That they're adding that the governor said actions of interfering with the constitution of the tender evaluation committee is meant to compromise the integrity of the tendering process.
Wow. It's a lot, right? When you start to pick it out then.
On paper.
It's a lot on paper. Will it stick is the question.
Actually, the thing that most people fail to understand, or at least don't pay sufficient attention to, is that MCAs are not some ignorant bunch of people who haven't gone to school, don't understand the law, don't understand what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
By the time they put these things on paper, they have carefully thought through and they've understood these things can remove you.
They know what grounds constitute impeachment.
They know. And if they're wind assisted, as Eric was suggesting, then they will have had legal advice also. They may have had other accusing. They told them this one won't hold. This one won't hold.
Yeah.
This yes. And you will also find that they may have what they consider to be sufficient evidence. Remember, these aren't people who have been sitting and watching. They've been collecting the evidence. Once they determined, or whether it was determined for them.
Pawns in play, dare you say.
And they take it forth. So if it goes to the Senate, in this newly reconstituted Senate, is it likely to pass? What would you place your bet?
Anne isn't anti-establishment.
She will survive this.
This one she can survive.
So she survives, takes 6 months, assembly, impeach again. bring it back?
There's a precedent.
Wambora.
Yes.
They'll keep doing this.
Yeah, and she'll keep going back.
2022, and we are done.
She served her full term as governor, even with all the minor, you want to say, bumps in the road or disruptions that would come along. I mean, it's interesting that you say that because she's a friend of the establishment, as it were, or she has a support.
She's friends with the establishment. So
right. She has the support of the establishment. I mean, that could be indicative of some kind of, telling that she's not likely to go anywhere. But if it's set on the resolve that we see, that these folks are, hard and fast, ready to go to all lengths to make sure that the impeachment at least is introduced and then holds to a certain degree. I mean, you want to look at that. They're really, really serious in terms of what it is that they're trying to push here. It's not just some flash in the pan, let's just make a statement. They do not want her there. And I think that needs to be looked at. They don't want her there.
My perceived understanding that she is a friend of the establishment has changed. If that has also changed and she's no longer a friend of the establishment, then she will have to look for other hunting grounds.
Goose is on the fire. Isn't it unfortunate, though, that that particular aspect, that if you are friends of the establishment, it doesn't matter what the people want?
Yeah.
Because
and if we're going with the argument that the members of the
people in the assembly
are the MCAs.
And they're the ones who are saying you have grossly violated the constitution and your office.
If we could utterly prove and we are absolutely certain that MCAs cannot be bought or sold, or should we? No, sorry. Their opinions cannot be bought or sold. Then what you're saying would hold a lot of water.
However.
But we know that there is a fluid manner in which they approach these matters. So, and we know that they will lean more on the side of financial benefit than the truth. And that's the reputation they've acquired. So, whether they represent their own interests or whether they represent the interests of the people is also subject to debate. Yes. And so long as that is subject to debate, being friendly to the establishment becomes a very, very handy tool to have.
It's a currency that puts things in motion, actually, this friendliness to the establishment. Serves as currency.
And it'll hold more water than anything
else.
Yes.
Coming to the end of the show, thank you very much for tuning in today, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Today's Proverb City.
If you cannot, and I'm paraphrasing heavily here, if you cannot master sufficient patience, you will never make beer.
If you cannot master sufficient patience.
Yes, the making of beer is a product of patience. Meaning if you want to achieve anything of worth, then you need to exercise patience. A great deal of it is sufficient.
Asante sana.
Yes.
I'm sure you want to say that let the conversation continue?
Let it continue. Yes.
And
yes.
What will you say?
Have a good day. We'll see you and talk tomorrow.
You stop telling us to sanitize, isolate.
It never
and all
stops,
those things.
man. Isolate, sanitize, keep it clean, keep safe.
All right. See you guys tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. The conversation continues tomorrow morning. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice up your life.